Gold tycoon in America in 1850. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326. A good start. The Crystal Palace Mall was brightly lit after dark, and the mall's business hours were from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Such long business hours are rare in New York, but even late at night, the customer flow in the Crystal Palace Mall is still very impressive. Thousands of kerosene lamps are like fireflies at night, illuminating the Crystal Palace Mall as bright as day. From a distance, the Crystal Palace Mall is like a shining pearl in New York City. When the mall closed, Fan Days did not go home, but stayed in the office of the Crystal Palace and couldn't wait to count the sales on the opening day overnight. He had been waiting for this day for 2 whole years. The success of the Crystal Palace on the opening day also finally put his heart at ease. Facts have proved that his decision to put the assets and resources of the entire family on the line and gamble with Liang Zhao to open the Crystal Palace Mall together was correct. After the mall opened, the business that was originally questioned within the Fan Days family also disappeared on this day, and he became the idol and savior of everyone in the family. The next morning, Liang Zhao had just woken up and was having breakfast when Fan Days grabbed the account book and ran excitedly to Liang Zhao's manor on the Hudson River. "You haven't had breakfast yet, have you? Since you're here, let's sit down and have breakfast together." Liang Zhao wiped his mouth with a napkin on the table and said. The direct-operated store of Crystal Palace Mall had a turnover of $38,521 yesterday. 71 gold membership cards were sold, 1,859 silver membership cards were sold, and 8,905 bronze membership cards were sold. Fan Days spoke in an excited tone. Although he stayed up all night last night to calculate the turnover of each direct-operated store, he is not young anymore. He is 48 years old this year, but he still maintains a very excited mental state. There are 2 types of stores in Crystal Palace Mall. One is the direct-operated store of Crystal Palace Mall. Direct-operated stores do not charge any store rent. Crystal Palace Department Store provides free guidance and management, as well as training services for store clerks, and participates in promotional activities held by Crystal Palace. The qualification requirements for obtaining a direct-operated store in the Crystal Palace Mall are quite strict. The current 333 direct-operated stores of the Crystal Palace are all high-quality New York stores carefully selected by Fan Days in the past 2 years. However, obtaining the qualification of a direct-operated store also comes at a price. That is, according to the actual situation of the store, 25% to 50% of the store shares are transferred to the Crystal Palace Department Store. Another type of store is a third-party store. The requirements for third-party stores to enter the Crystal Palace are relatively loose. After passing the review, they only need to pay the store rent and the relevant service fees of the mall on time. Currently, 187 of the 520 stores in the Crystal Palace are third-party stores. Direct-operated stores and third-party stores are also easy to distinguish. The signs of direct-operated stores have very conspicuous Crystal Palace Department Store and trademarks and the words direct-operated store, while third-party stores do not. The turnover of $38,521 a day is indeed a very good result. This is only the turnover of direct-operated stores. Counting the turnover of third-party stores, it is very likely that the turnover of the Crystal Palace Mall yesterday was about $50,000. This is equivalent to an average of 10 cents per New Yorker spent in the Crystal Palace yesterday. As far as Liang Zhao knows, the average daily turnover of Stuart's Marble Palace is about $13,500, which is far less than the Crystal Palace Mall that came later. Of course, such a high turnover is also due to the activities on the first day of opening and the freshness of the store. The subsequent turnover may decline. The membership card that Fan Days mentioned is the membership card of the Crystal Palace Mall, which can be used in all directly operated stores. The members of the Crystal Palace Mall are divided into 3 levels, namely gold, silver and bronze. Gold members need to pay an annual fee of $350 per year, which is mainly for the wealthy class in New York. In addition to enjoying a 30% discount on all goods in the store, gold members also enjoy the mall's special carriage pickup, priority reception, and the service of asking waiters to accompany them throughout the shopping process, as well as free door-to-door delivery of any goods anywhere in New York State. Silver membership cards require an annual fee of $20 per year, which is mainly for the middle class in New York. In addition to enjoying a 20% discount on all goods in the store, silver members also enjoy free door-to-door delivery in New York City. Bronze membership cards require an annual fee of $2 and are mainly for the working class in New York, enjoying a 10% discount on all items. In other words, on the first day of the Crystal Palace Mall's opening, the membership fee alone earned $79,840, which is a good start. Not bad. Congratulations, Mr. Van Dazer. In a few years, you will replace Stewart and become the retail king of New York. Liang Zhao congratulated. You are the one. You are the largest shareholder of Crystal Palace Department Store, Van Dazer smiled. Crystal Palace Department Store was originally held by Liang Zhao and Van Dazer family 50% each, but because the land for the construction of the mall was provided by Liang Zhao, Van Dazer transferred 20% of the shares to Liang Zhao. In the end, the shareholding structure of Crystal Palace Department Store was 70% for Liang Zhao and 30% for Van Dazer family. Although the Van Dazer family only holds 30%, the family assets have increased a lot compared to before, so there are no complaints. Yesterday, we sold 182 sewing machines and 15,000 liters of kerosene. Butterfly Sewing Machine Factory said that they only have 500 sewing machines in stock now, and we can't sell 500 sewing machines in a few days. As for kerosene, we only sold 15,000 liters of kerosene yesterday because we only provided 15,000 liters of kerosene yesterday, Van Dazer said. Also, the sales of ready-made clothes are very good, but most of the ready-made clothes come from clothing factories in California and need to be shipped from California. Are you also considering setting up a clothing factory in New York? In this way, you can save a transportation link and reduce the cost of ready-made clothes. Sewing machines and kerosene were the best-selling products on the opening day. These two products alone contributed $19,970 in sales. I will increase the supply of sewing machines and kerosene in the future, Liang Zhao said after rinsing his mouth. He has been working hard to increase the production of sewing machines and kerosene, but increasing production is not something that can be done overnight. As for clothing factories, he does not consider opening a new clothing factory in New York. The number of immigrants in California is growing very fast, and Liang Zhao must provide enough jobs for these immigrants to stabilize the social order in California. It is foolish to transfer precious local jobs in California to New York for a little profit at this time. Mr. Buckhouse said that as long as we are willing to build shopping malls like the Crystal Palace in New York and Boston and Philadelphia, he can give us a piece of land in the downtown area for free. These two cities are also markets worth developing. Van Dazer's eyes flashed with a burning light. Businessmen of this era are very aggressive. Once they succeed in a certain business field, they will quickly seek expansion and want to monopolize the entire field. According to High Emotional Intelligence, it is full of adventurous spirit. As long as enough funds can be raised and the operation of the Crystal Palace in New York is not affected, I don't oppose expansion, Liang Zhao said. If Mr. Buckhouse is really enthusiastic and insists on giving us land, we can't refuse his kindness, so just accept it. This is Liang Zhao's attitude. His focus is on California and the Pacific Railway. His own energy and funds are limited. Let Van Dazer do it himself in the eastern retail sector. As long as the Crystal Palace is well managed, its service scope can not only radiate New York City and New York State, but also radiate to neighboring states and counties. Liang Zhao is not in a hurry to expand to Philadelphia and Boston. In the next few days, Liang Zhao will just read newspapers, read books, and pay attention to the progress of the presidential election. The good news is that Fillmore is in good shape, and of course, the situation is also very good. As a politician, Pierce, who has little experience in politics and has relied on backstage and luck to get to where he is now, is obviously not smooth enough. When facing the key issue of how to view black slaves, Pierce not only plays tie-chi poorly, but also clearly shows a tendency to sympathize with the southern slave states. This behavior is no different from later politicians shouting "Black Lives Matter" in front of right-wing white male voters. Pierce's inappropriate words and deeds have caused Pierce's support rate in the northern free states to decline. The pitiful support rate gained in the southern states is far from making up for Pierce's losses in the north. Liang Zhao is not very clear about the situation in other states. At least in New York State, Fillmore's 35 electoral votes are stable. As long as he gets 35 electoral votes from New York, Even if Pierce loses 15 electoral votes from Virginia, the largest slave state, it won't be a bad result. How about it? Want to have a drink together? Vanderbilt came to visit with a bottle of brandy. My pleasure. Are you here to talk to me about the transfer of Sobeys Wharf and Stanford Wharf in New York? Liang Zhao, who was clipping newspapers, temporarily put down the work at hand. Liang Zhao guessed that Vanderbilt came to visit today to discuss the transfer of Sobeys Wharf and Stanford Wharf. He was gradually taking over the shipping empire that Vanderbilt had created. The assets of Vanderbilt's shipping empire include not only ships, but also a large number of docks and shipping line operating rights, which is a considerable asset. No, we are not talking about business today. Vanderbilt was not at all shy. He acted as if he was at home. He grabbed 2 clean wine glasses from the kitchen cabinet and poured brandy into the 2 empty wine glasses. Chapter 327 Nicholas I. Liang Zhao took the wine from Vanderbilt and clinked glasses with him. Vanderbilt was born a sailor and drank like water. Liang Zhao could not compare with Vanderbilt in terms of drinking capacity. Liang Zhao wanted to just show his appreciation, but after seeing Vanderbilt drink the wine in the glass, Liang Zhao had to bite the bullet and finish the full glass of brandy. I have talked with Chinese people doing business in New York. Many of them are from your hometown. I heard that in your China, a gentleman family like yours will be engaged to other local gentleman families of equal status when their children and grandchildren are very young. Even when the child is still in the belly and the gender is not clear, they will be engaged. Do you also have such an engagement? Vanderbilt said, playing with a wine glass in his hand. That's true, but before I came to California, my family changed from a gentleman family to a criminal family, and many of the engagements I made at the time were cancelled. Liang Zhao put the wine glass on the table and said, as for my marriage, my position in the family is not very important, so I am not the first choice for marriage, so that means there is no marriage. Vanderbilt seemed a little happy, and then asked curiously, in China, rich and powerful men can have many wives. In America, it is also possible. Liang Zhao thought for a while and said, China is a monogamous system with multiple concubines. Just like many congressmen, although they have families, it does not prevent them from having many lovers outside. Monogamous system with multiple concubines is only enjoyed by the privileged class in China. Ordinary people still live a dull life with their wives, and even do not have a personal relationship, and are single for life. Liang Zhao is a wise man. Vanderbilt came to him not to discuss business, but to ask questions about Chinese marriage. It is likely that he came to propose marriage. Look into my eyes. Vanderbilt suddenly raised his voice. The two looked at each other. Vanderbilt's expression was very serious. He looked straight into Liang Zhao's eyes, as if he wanted to see through Liang Zhao's inner thoughts. Do you like Elizabeth? Liang Zhao looked at Vanderbilt frankly, without any intention of avoiding it. He replied very seriously and affirmatively, I like it, but I will not be your assistant like Clark and others for Elizabeth. If Liang Zhao had not made it in California, it would be a good choice for him to be a son-in-law and assistant to old fan like Clark. But now he has made it, and there is no need to be inferior to others and rely on others. Vanderbilt took another full glass of wine and sighed. Why should I let the General of the U.S. Army and the Speaker of the California State Assembly be my assistant? This is what Vanderbilt said in his heart. He did have the idea of letting Liang Zhao be his son-in-law and assistant. But he also knew that Liang Zhao was not like Clark. Relying on the Vanderbilt family, Clark could be among the celebrities in New York, but Clark's upper limit was limited to this. And Liang Zhao's upper limit, at present, seems to have unlimited possibilities. In terms of wealth, Liang Zhao's wealth may not be less than Vanderbilt's. In terms of status, Liang Zhao's status in America is much higher than Vanderbilt's. Seeing that the brandy he brought was finished, Vanderbilt took a bottle of wine from the wine rack and opened it. While pouring the wine, he continued, Elizabeth's mind is all on you. If I give her to someone else, she will hate me for the rest of her life. Vanderbilt drank the wine in the glass in one gulp, pursed his lips and said, I, an unqualified father, have been envied by my 3 daughters. I don't want my most beloved youngest daughter to envy me again. This time I will be a qualified father and help you 2 couples, so you still have self-knowledge. Liang Zhao teased. Vanderbilt's children, who are good at business and neglect family, do not have a harmonious relationship with Vanderbilt. When Connie was Liang Zhao's assistant, he often complained about his father in front of Liang Zhao. Proposed to Elizabeth, Vanderbilt patted Liang Zhao on the shoulder. according to your customs, do what you should do, in the winter palace of St. Petersburg, the capital of Tsarist Russia. Nicholas I, the emperor of this expansionist country, a middle-aged man with a bald head, a fat belly and a mustache, was waiting for the British envoy Hamilton Seymour. He was going to explain to the British envoy Hamilton Seymour his wishful thinking plan to divide the spoils and the new order in Europe dominated by the two superpowers of Britain and Russia in the future. In 1453, after the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire, the last princess of the empire, Sophia Paleolog, married the Grand Duke of Moscow Ivan III. Since the last emperor of the Byzantine Empire, Constantine I, had no heirs, Princess Sophia was the only legitimate heir, so the Principality of Moscow began to claim that it was the heir to the Eastern Roman Empire and called itself the Third Rome. The Third Rome also provided the Principality of Moscow and the subsequent Russian rulers with a ridiculous expansion logic of expanding territory in all directions. To their east were the Mongol Khanate of Kazan, the Khanate of Astra, and the Khanate of Siberia. These pagans from the eastern steppes had invaded and enslaved Christians in Europe. Russia attacked these Mongol pagan Khanates, occupied their lands, and enslaved their people to avenge the Christian world. To their west were the Poles. Poland invaded Russia many times at the beginning of the founding of Russia, arbitrarily replaced the Tsar, and played with the Russian government. It was not until the establishment of the Great Romanov dynasty that the nightmare of the Russians ended. Poland had done evil before, and Russia divided their territory and destroyed their country as just revenge. To their south was now the Ottoman Empire, so there was even more reason to fight the Ottoman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire rose, it not only blocked the trade route from Europe to the east, but also threatened the security of the European Christian world for a long time. In the Ottoman Empire, there was also the old capital of their Roman Empire, the Holy Land of Christianity, Constantinople. Most importantly, there is the Black Sea outlet that the Russian Empire has always dreamed of. To their north are the Swedes and the Nordic Vikings. These Nordic Vikings have invaded and robbed us in history, so there are naturally reasons to attack them and occupy their territory. In short, the expansion of the Russian Empire in any direction is reasonable and just, and it is all for the good of our Christian brothers in Europe. Nicholas I stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the huge map on the wall. The map takes Russia as the center of the world. Against the backdrop of the huge Russia, the surrounding countries, except for the Qing dynasty in Asia, all seem so small and pocket-sized. The huge map made Nicholas I excited. His ancestors seized land from these evil neighbors one by one, and created the Russian Empire, which has the largest territory in the world today. The Khanate of Kazan, the Khanate of Astrakhan, and the Khanate of Siberia in the east no longer exist, and Poland in the west is now part of the Russian Empire. As for Sweden in the north, the land under his feet, St. Petersburg, the first outlet that Peter the Great, the holy king of the Romanov dynasty, seized from the Swedes. Now, it was the turn of the ambitious Nicholas I to include the weak and vulnerable Ottoman Empire in the south and recapture the capital of the former Eastern Roman Empire. He wanted to become the third Russian emperor after Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, not the emperor whose territory had changed the least during his reign. Your Majesty, Hamilton Seymour, the British ambassador to Russia, took off his hat and bowed to Nicholas I. The British Empire and the Russian Empire are the most powerful countries in the world. Britain has the most powerful navy in the world, and we have the most powerful army in the world. The order and rules of this world are made by the strong, and the strong are us. Nicholas I did not beat around the bush, but went straight to the point. He was a straightforward person and would not beat around the bush, let alone hide his ambitions. Nicholas I's remarks made Seymour frown, and Seymour was organizing euphemistic but decent words in his mind to answer Nicholas I, the arrogant Tsar. After organizing his words, Seymour was about to speak when Nicholas I pulled Seymour to the map, raised the scepter in his hand, used the scepter as a brush, and pointed at the huge map on the wall. For half a century, the Eastern question has been unresolved. This is a major security risk on the European continent. Now that the Ottoman Empire is weak, it is the best time to solve the Eastern question, Nicholas I said in the tone of an arbitrator. Nicholas I's inflated mentality came from the anti-French war half a century ago. The French Emperor Napoleon I, who once swept across the European continent, was so arrogant that he almost occupied the entire Europe, making the entire Europe shrouded in clouds, and the royal families of European countries trembled with fear, did not fall in the Austrian Empire, did not fall in the Kingdom of Prussia, but in the Russian Empire. It was the great Russian Empire that defeated the arrogant French Empire. The empire with the most powerful army in the world was defeated by the Russian Empire, so the army of the Russian Empire is naturally the most powerful army in the world. This is the logic of Nicholas I, who are the hegemons of the world today, except the British Empire and the Russian Empire. The anti-French war brought the Russian Empire's influence in Europe to an unprecedented peak. After the war, the rulers of the Russian Empire were very concerned about the affairs of the European countries, actively participated in and intervened in the affairs of the European countries, and regarded themselves as the arbitrators and European gendarmes of Europe. Just 5 years ago, Nicholas I enthusiastically sent Field Marshal Paskevich to lead 100,000 troops into Hungary to suppress the revolutionary movement in Austria-Hungary for Franz Joseph, the 18-year-old emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire who had just ascended the throne. The excessive enthusiasm of Tsarist Russia in European affairs naturally aroused the vigilance of Britain, which has always pursued a policy of continental balance of power. Britain would never sit idly by and watch any powerful country break the balance of power on the European continent, not France under the rule of Napoleon I, and even less the Russian Empire under the rule of Nicholas I. It's a pity that the arrogant Nicholas I did not realize this clearly. He believed that this reliable ally who had been in the anti-French alliance with him would stand with the powerful Russian Empire this time to solve the Eastern problem together, that is, to divide the Ottoman Empire in the Near East. As for the Anglo-French alliance, Nicholas I thought it was a big joke. How could these two old enemies with a feud cooperate? This year, Napoleon I's nephew Napoleon I just ascended the throne in France. Did the British forget the fear that Napoleon I's first French Empire brought to them? Want to face a French Second Empire that is as powerful and as martial as the First French Empire? The British will definitely cooperate with a powerful Russia. This is what Nicholas I think now. This chapter has been revised for a long time. Please read it and cherish it. I really don't understand the direction of public opinion in recent years. Chapter 328 Napoleon III. The British certainly have not forgotten the fear that Napoleon I brought to the European continent. Britain does not want a strong France to appear on the European continent, let alone a strong Russia. To be precise, Britain does not want any empire on the European continent that is too powerful and capable of changing the geopolitics of Europe, posing a threat to Britain's world hegemony. Perhaps the dazzling halo of the European gendarmes blinded Nicholas I's eyes and made him lose the ability to discern the current situation. It may also be that Nicholas I was arrogant and stupid, thinking that the chess game on the European continent would go the way he imagined. Hamilton Seymour, the British minister to Russia, quietly watched the arrogant Tsar, whose eyes were so hot that they could almost burst into sparks, pointing out the world in front of the map, as if he was the master of this world. The Ottoman Empire is about to collapse. Once the Ottoman Empire falls into a state of collapse and disorder, the Near East will become turbulent. 1/3 of the population of the Ottoman Empire is our Christian brothers. In order to protect these Christian brothers from being bullied by pagans, we have the obligation to send troops to protect our Christian brothers. Protect our sacred faith. As a responsible great power, we should work together to rebuild a new order in the Near East. Seymour naturally knew that Nicholas I was talking nonsense. Who the hell is your brother? The so-called religion is just an excuse. The Tsar covets the Black Sea outlet and a territory of the Ottoman Empire. What kind of order do you think is the new order in the Near East? Seymour asked casually. Our British allies will get Egypt and Crete, Nicholas I said complacently. He thought that the two pieces of cake, Egypt and Crete, were enough to impress Britain and make Britain stand on his side. So, what will our great Russian Empire get? Where will your border in the Near East be? Seymour asked back. Compared to what Britain could get from the alliance with Russia, he seemed to know what Russia wanted. Bulgaria and Serbia, and the protector of the Christians of the Crusades in Constantinople, Nicholas I said bluntly. As for the border, the territory of the Russian Empire will never have borders, just like the ocean controlled by Britain has no borders. From Nicholas I's arrogant tone, Seymour has realized that a new war is inevitable. And Britain will not be Russia's ally. No one wants to be an ally with a madman. Nicholas I's ambition is obvious. He wants not only the Danube River basin, but also the Crimea region, and even the entire Black Sea to become the inland sea of the Russian Empire. This has touched the core interests of the British Empire in Europe, which cannot be compensated by Egypt and Crete. I will state your demands to London truthfully, Seymour said expressionlessly, and then bowed to Nicholas I to say goodbye. Looking at the British envoy, who was a little unsteady on his legs and feet, trembling and leaving. Nicholas I's face was full of complacency, thinking that everything was under his control. He will work with the British to divide up the old and decrepit Ottoman Empire. Russia is not without sober rulers, but under the autocratic rule of Nicholas I, no one dared to stand up against Nicholas I's crazy and unrealistic expansion plan. The fate of the country belongs to the Romanov family, and their lives are their own. They don't want to go to Siberia to participate in Siberian farm fun with the February party. Your Majesty, Russian Imperial Minister, Foreign Minister Karl Nesrode, mustered up the courage to fight. I have a harsh word to say. I hope your Majesty will not overestimate the hostility between England and France and misjudge the friendship between Russia and England. This veteran foreign minister of the Romanov dynasty, during the reign of Alexander I, after the end of the anti-French war, Nesrode accompanied Alexander I to the Vienna Conference that reshaped the European continent, the Vienna Conference of 1814 to 1815. The major countries on the European continent all attended this conference. As the leader of the anti-French war alliance and the savior of Europe, the Russian Empire and Britain became the protagonists of this conference, which was to reshape the European continent. I think you worry too much? There is no friendship between Britain and France, Nicholas I said unhappily. Nicholas I did not care about the old minister's statement. He firmly believed that his wise and brave judgment was correct. He will lead the great Russian Empire to a higher peak and dominate the European continent. Send a telegram to our Imperial Navy Marshal Menshikov and ask him to prepare to go to Constantinople to convey my will to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. If they do not accept the protection of the Russian Empire, only war will be waiting for them. Menshikov? After hearing this name, Nasiruddin's heart skipped a beat. Menshikov's character was similar to that of Nicholas I himself. He did not understand diplomacy, had a bad temper, and acted impulsively. Sending such a person to Constantinople to negotiate with the Ottoman Empire would obviously not have any good results. Marshal Menshikov has no diplomatic experience and is not a suitable person to be sent to the Ottoman Empire. I am willing to replace Marshal Menshikov as an envoy to the Ottoman Empire. Nasiruddin did not want the situation to develop in the worst direction, so he took the initiative to volunteer and expressed his willingness to replace Menshikov as an envoy to the Ottoman Empire. A mighty general sent to the Ottoman Empire is more deterrent than a gentle and polite foreign minister. Nicholas I rejected Nasiruddin's initiative. Thousands of miles away in the Palace of Versailles, the new emperor of the French Empire opened the reply letter from St. Petersburg. The beginning of the reply made Napoleon II furious. Nicholas I called him my dear friend in the letter, which was a great insult to his Napoleon family. He should call himself my good brother. After Napoleon II became emperor, the major countries on the European continent either recognized or acquiesced to his identity as the Emperor of France. Only Nicholas I sang the opposite tune and was reluctant to recognize him as the legitimate Emperor of France. The reason given by Nicholas I was that according to the Congress of Vienna, the Bonaparte family had no right to inherit the throne. The Congress of Vienna was a humiliation for France. This conference was held to restrain the powerful France and prevent it from making a comeback. For 40 years, the shackles of the Congress of Vienna have been comfortable for France, making the once powerful France breathless. He now wants to break this shackle, break free from the shackles, make France great again, and dominate the European continent again. Chapter 329 Make France Great Again. Napoleon III, who successfully became emperor, was both happy and angry. He was happy because after years of wandering, he finally ascended the coveted throne of the French emperor, a throne that once belonged to his uncle and the Napoleon family. He was angry because his commencing to the throne this time was relatively smooth, which meant that other countries on the European continent no longer regarded the weakened France as a threat, and believed that even if someone from the Bonaparte family became the French emperor, it would not pose a threat to Europe. This was contempt for France and also for the Bonaparte family. France needed to go through a war and stand on the corpses of powerful enemies to show other countries on the European continent that French men had stood up again. Napoleon III crumpled up Nicholas I's letter and threw it on the ground. At this time, Russia, the European gendarmerie that was in its heyday and had unlimited glory, was the best corpse and target. The Russian Empire looked strong enough, and defeating Russia would prove France's strength. His uncle was defeated in Russia. Defeating the Russian Empire could avenge the failure of the 1812 expedition to Russia and then disintegrate the old anti-French alliance. Only by disintegrating the old anti-French alliance can France have a chance to revive and rise. More importantly, the British are now also afraid of this polar bear who is too enthusiastic about European affairs. Taking Russia as an enemy can arouse the sympathy of the British, and work together to curb the momentum of the polar bear's westward advance and cut off the bear's paw extending to the west. Napoleon III was exiled to Britain, and his years of exile in Britain also deepened his understanding of Britain. Although Britain was once a major member of the anti-French alliance, Britain has no permanent allies on the European continent. When France is strong, Britain can ally with Russia, and when Russia is strong, Britain can naturally ally with France. There are no permanent allies between countries, only permanent interests. Of course, launching a war requires an excuse, a legitimate excuse to send troops. Now, this excuse is also available, and it is an excuse personally presented by Nicholas I. Nicholas I's ambition made Abdul-Mejid, the 31st Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, deeply uneasy. Mejid's initial idea was to walk between Orthodox Russia and Catholic England and France to ensure the safety of the Ottoman Empire. But Nicholas I's undisguised expansionist ambitions quickly changed the Sultan's attitude and made him closer to the two Catholic countries of Britain and France. The rulers of the Ottoman Empire also knew that whether it was pro-Russian or pro-British and French, it was a bad choice for the Ottoman Empire. But obviously the result of being pro-Russian was worse, because the greedy Russia had more urgent territorial demands for them. Choosing the lesser of two evils, the Ottoman rulers finally decided to move closer to Britain and France. 1/3 of the population in the Ottoman Empire was Christian, including both Orthodox Christians and Catholics. The Ottoman Empire was a Muslim country, but due to the numerous religious factions in the country, many Christian holy sites were located in the Ottoman Empire. So there were also many Christian people in the Ottoman Empire. The religious issues of the empire have always been a headache for successive sultans. Of course, religion is also a bargaining chip that they can use. This time, the bargaining chip that the Ottoman Empire gave to the two Catholic countries of Britain and France was that as long as Britain and France were willing to help the Ottoman Empire resist the invasion of Tsarist Russia, the Ottoman Empire would offer the right to use the holy places of Jerusalem Church and Bethlehem Church. Napoleon III was not a loyal Catholic believer. During the reign of his uncle Napoleon I, he even expelled many clergymen in France. However, this time, as long as Nicholas I dared to send troops to the Ottoman Empire, he would choose to fight for the Holy Land and for Catholicism. Since Nicholas I sent a reply letter with arrogant words, it was impolite not to return the favor. Napoleon III also had to respond to Nicholas I's arrogance. Napoleon III took off his gloves and threw them on the table, saying to his confidant beside him, "Give my gloves to the Tsar." Taking off gloves is a courtesy before a knight's duel, which also shows Napoleon II's determination to compete with Nicholas I. After his confidant took the gloves, Napoleon III called his general Pierre-Joseph François Bosquet. "Your Majesty." Bosquet greeted Napoleon III who was standing by the window. Napoleon III was of medium build like his uncle, and he also exuded a majestic temperament. Now the whole country has high hopes for the emperor of the Bonaparte family, hoping that he can lead France out of the trough. The plan to expand the army by 50,000 this year must be completed on time, and the war is getting closer and closer to France. Napoleon III said to Bosquet, "Your Majesty, as long as the military expenditure is sufficient, the expansion is not a problem," Bosquet replied. Bosquet's implication is that the military expenditure is not sufficient at the moment. "I will solve the problem of military expenditure," Napoleon said earnestly. "Once a war breaks out with Russia, the success or failure of this war will determine whether France can gain a firm foothold in the European continent in the future. This war can only be won, not lost. It is time for the French rooster, which has been sleeping for many years, to crow. If he wins, he will be more powerful, but if he loses, he will be in danger." Napoleon III knew that he could be supported by the French people and successfully ascend the throne of the French emperor, which was a great legacy left to him by his uncle. Rather than saying that the French people still yearn for the Bonaparte dynasty, it is better to say that the French people miss the strong France under the rule of his uncle Napoleon I. He has just ascended the throne and is not very stable in France. He needs a military victory to strengthen his authority, consolidate his rule in France, awaken the fighting spirit of the French people, and inspire the national pride of the French people. If he loses this war, his ending will be more miserable than his uncle. He has no way back. This is a war that can only succeed, not fail. He can't afford to lose. Your Majesty, I would like to ask, have the British expressed their views? The British attitude is crucial to being an enemy of Russia, Bosket said. The Russians want to win over the British, and the French also want to win over the British. The British's statement on the Eastern issue is too important, so important that it can determine his victory or defeat. Napoleon III did not take Nicholas I's so-called Austro-Hungarian ally seriously. This is not because the Austro-Hungarian Empire is relatively weak, but Russia's involvement in the Danube River will inevitably affect the core interests of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Although the Emperor Franz Joseph of the Austro-Hungarian Empire is young, he must understand the principle of not allowing others to sleep soundly beside his bed. Unless he wants the Austro-Hungarian Empire to become the second Poland. After all, the greedy Russians' expansion pace is endless. Do you think that with a British politician's shrewdness, they will express their views so early? Napoleon III said calmly. I am only 80% sure that Britain will stand on our side, but I am 100% sure that Britain will remain neutral and not stand on the side of Russia. Napoleon III's words gave Bosket peace of mind. As long as the British did not stand on the side of the Russians, he had the confidence to lead the men of France to teach those grey beasts of the Tsar a lesson and let them know who is the world's #1 army. Chapter 330, Eating Melon America. The strong smell of gunpowder on the European continent can be smelled in America. Compared with the reports on the issues of the United Kingdom, France and Russia surrounding the Near East in major newspapers, Liang Zhao is more concerned about an inconspicuous news in the corner of the newspaper. A small accident happened in Newcastle upon Tyne. The factory building of Armstrong Company in Elswick, a suburb of Newcastle, exploded due to improper warehouse management. The explosion affected the entire factory area and the entire factory was almost razed to the ground. The Elswick factory was actually an arsenal, and at that time, this arsenal was not known to people outside the UK. This arsenal was the arsenal that later produced the Armstrong gun and the predecessor of the Elswick shipyard. The Beiyang fleet of the Qing dynasty and the combined fleet of Japan had purchased ships from the Elswick shipyard. For example, the Mosquito ship, the first Western warship purchased by the Qing Navy, was partly built by the Elswick shipyard. The Hachiure battleship and the Osama armored cruiser of the Japanese combined fleet were also built by this shipyard. However, Armstrong has just started and has not yet entered the shipbuilding industry. Liang Zhao naturally knew why the Armstrong factory exploded. He just wanted the Luo family to help him get the experimental gun in the blueprint and steal the research results of Armstrong. He didn't expect the Luo family to do such a thing. They made a big move and blew up the entire factory. In addition to the presidential election these days, the most popular topic for Americans to talk about before and after dinner is which of the three countries, Britain, France and Russia, is stronger and weaker, and after Russia invaded the Ottoman Empire, will Britain continue to give verbal support to the Ottoman Empire, or will it directly send troops to help the Ottoman Empire? Or will it directly stand on the side of Russia to dismember and divide the Ottoman Empire? As for France, most Americans believe that France will definitely stand on the opposite side of Russia, because the First French Empire began to decline after the failure of the expedition to Russia. At the Vienna Conference, Britain, which defeated Napoleon in the crucial Battle of Waterloo, was relatively tolerant of the defeated France, while Russia was aggressive and wanted to dismember France. American politicians judged that the hostility between Britain and France was not as deep as the outside world imagined, and this time Britain and France were likely to join hands to fight against this eastern giant bear. No one knows a father better than his son. These American politicians are relatively accurate in their judgment of the situation, especially in their judgment of Britain's behavior. The authorities are confused, and the bystanders are clear. If you pull up a congressman and ask them whether a war will break out between slave states and free states, their reaction will definitely be hesitant for a long time and can't say anything. But if you talk to them about the situation on the European continent, they can talk eloquently and say something useful. Now the United States has no say in international affairs, and the world is still a world centered on Europeans. Even if a war breaks out, it will not have much impact on the United States. The United States is also unable to intervene in European affairs and can only watch the show across the Atlantic. The Crimean War, a large-scale war in which both sides deployed millions of troops, was not something America could afford. America couldn't afford it, let alone Liang Zhao. With only 2 regiments of troops, he couldn't make much of a splash in the Crimean battlefield. Of course, he didn't want to send troops directly to Crimea to stir up the muddy water. However, there was still a desire to make money from the war. America had a unique geographical advantage and was naturally suitable for making money from the war. Not only Liang Zhao had this idea, but plantation owners in the South were already discussing raising the price of cotton to make a lot of money from the British and French. Factory owners in the North were also discussing the feasibility of selling military supplies to Britain and France. Whether in the South or the North, the discussion was about trading with Britain and France, and few people discussed trading with Russia. This also reflected from the side that Russia, an empire that was strong on the outside but weak on the inside, had a very backward economy and little influence on international trade. Its backward and fragile economy could not support the empire's huge military power. For maybe the only commodity that Russia can offer. The only trade that Liang Zhao and Russia have in common is fur, and it is not Liang Zhao's rigid demand. The Oregon region adjacent to California produces fur, and Canada also produces fur. The fur in these places can completely replace the fur imported from Russia. Liang Zhao is thinking about how to maximize the economic benefits in this upcoming war. He wants to make money from Britain and France. As for Russia, can the Russian Empire, which has to feed more than 1 million gray animals of the Tsar, afford the money? The answer is obvious, no. I am afraid that the only thing Russia can offer is land and population. Recently, many British, French, and Russian businessmen have also appeared on Wall Street, presumably to raise funds for the upcoming war. Liang Zhao also issued $5 million of state government bonds for the California government on Wall Street. Due to the good reputation of the California state government, investors are also confident in the future development of California. The $5 million California government bonds were sold very smoothly on Wall Street. In addition to selling bonds for the California government, Liang Zhao also issued $5 million in bonds on Wall Street in the name of the American Group. These bonds were quickly sold out and were more popular than the bonds of the California state government. Liang Zhao also mortgaged 5 acres of land in New York to the local Citibank and borrowed $1 million from Citibank. Including the original working capital, Liang Zhao now has about $15 million in working capital. With this money in hand, Liang Zhao is confident enough. Whether it is the start of the Pacific Railway or the increase in the production of Los Angeles oil, there is no need to worry about the problem of a broken capital chain. What's more, in addition to this $15 million, if the talks with the Rothschild family on the kerosene business go smoothly, Liang Zhao can also apply for a considerable loan from the Rothschild family's bank. At the end of the month, the results of the election were announced. Fillmore won the election by a narrow margin and was eligible for re-election. This also made Liang Zhao finally put down his heart that had been hanging. At the same time, Liang Zhao also lamented the strength of the Democratic Party. Fillmore won 3 major states, New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, and received 30% of the electoral votes. His opponent was a clown like Pierce, but he only won a small victory in the end. It can be seen that the Democratic Party, as the oldest political party in existence, has a very deep foundation and influence. It is worth noting that in this election, many abolitionists of the Democratic Party and the Whig Party voted against the election and withdrew from the Democratic Party and the Whig Party. These politicians who were originally in hostile parties became closer and closer because of the same political proposition, abolition. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331, Unpeaceful Years. Fillmore, who was successfully re-elected, returned the favor by submitting the Pacific Railroad Bill to Congress and trying his best to promote the smooth passage of the bill. After the Pacific Railroad Bill was passed by Congress, Liang Zhao immediately sent a telegram to the headquarters of Bank of America in San Francisco, instructing Bank of America to provide $3 million in funds to the California Railway Company to start this super project and start construction as planned. The Atlantic Railway Company in the East also received $1 million in funds from the New York branch of Bank of America to assist Vanderbilt's Railway Company in the construction of the eastern section of the Pacific Railroad Company. Vanderbilt was very excited to learn that Congress had passed the Pacific Railroad Bill, and he could finally do a big job. After seeing the documents of the Pacific Railroad Bill with his own eyes, Vanderbilt quickly raised $2 million in funds from Wall Street and came to Liang Zhao at the same time, hoping that Liang Zhao could find a way to provide him with more railway workers, or more precisely, Chinese workers to build the railway. This is a huge project, and I need more workers, or more hard-working Chinese workers to be more precise, said Vanderbilt. How much do you need? Liang Zhao poured a glass of wine for Vanderbilt. He had provided labor for Vanderbilt in the process of widening the route of the Nicaragua Canal. Vanderbilt was quite kind, and the salary he provided to Chinese laborers was 3/4 of that of white laborers. 3,000. Vanderbilt held up 3 fingers. In order to cooperate with your project, I have specially drawn personnel from major railway companies and established a Pacific Railway Company to be responsible for building the Pacific Railway, but there is still a shortage of 5,000 laborers. You must help me find a way to fill this shortage of 5,000 laborers. Seeing Vanderbilt's rogue look, Liang Zhao felt a little funny. This is our common project. I can help you find a way to solve the problem of labor, but I can't gather 3,000 people for you at once, so I can only send them to you in batches. And new explosives. I need a lot of new explosives. I heard that the efficiency of this kind of explosives in mining and road construction is several times that of black powder explosives. Vanderbilt continued to ask for a lot. This kind of explosive is too dangerous and is prone to explosion during transportation. Liang Zhao shook his head and said. A week ago, he received a telegram from Nobel. Nobel had successfully produced relatively safe diatomaceous earth explosives in the laboratory, that is, solid nitroglycerine explosives, and is now looking for efficient and safe ways to detonate them. In the short term, Liang Zhao still has to use liquid nitroglycerine explosives with relatively high safety risks. It is very dangerous to use nitroglycerine explosives in California, not to mention transporting nitroglycerine explosives over long distances to the east. The fastest route from California to the eastern United States, the Nicaragua route, requires both water and land routes. During transportation, in addition to loading and unloading at the starting and end points, loading and unloading in Nicaragua is also required, which undoubtedly increases safety risks. If something goes wrong in the middle of the journey, the global shipping group responsible for the transportation will not only lose precious transport ships, but also bear casualties, which Liang Zhao cannot accept. This is why Liang Zhao has been reluctant to sell nitroglycerine explosives to the outside world. Efficiency is more important than safety, Vanderbilt said coldly. Liang Zhao paced back and forth in the room. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, it is too risky to transport nitroglycerine explosives from California, but I can open an explosives factory in the mining area to specialize in producing nitroglycerine explosives for the Pacific Railway Company to build roads. Liang Zhao had just finished speaking when Connie came in a hurry and said to Liang Zhao, Sir, the president wants to see you and asks you to meet him in Washington. Got it? Liang Zhao nodded and said. Fillmore sent a telegram specifically asking Liang Zhao to meet him in Washington. Liang Zhao couldn't refuse. He still had to give the president face. Liang Zhao put down the things at hand and took the train to Washington to meet Fillmore. Liang Zhao came to the presidential office in the White House. Fillmore signaled his assistant to go out and close the office door. Liang Zhao and Fillmore were the only ones left in the huge presidential office. This time, Fillmore did not beat around the bush. Instead, he came straight to the point and explained the purpose of calling Liang Zhao to the White House. You are an expert on Eastern issues and the person who knows Asia best in America. I want to ask you about some things about the Far East to solve our Eastern issues in America. After that, Fillmore pointed to the chair next to Liang Zhao and motioned Liang Zhao to sit down. I wonder what issues Mr. President wants to consult, Liang Zhao asked after he sat down. China. Fillmore slid a telegram on the desk in front of Liang Zhao. In March, the Qing dynasty's anti-government forces occupied Jiangning, an important city in the south, and made this city their capital. As far as I know, this anti-government force was only established in 1851. In just 2 years, they conquered cities and captured such an important city. Does it mean that this new government will replace the Qing government and become the new government of China? If so, will they recognize the treaty signed between the Qing government and us? I want to know which side is more in line with our American interests in China. This year is destined to be an uneasy year. Not only is the European continent not peaceful, the Near East is not peaceful, the Middle East is not peaceful, and even the Far East is not peaceful. Tsarist Russia and the Ottoman Empire are about to go to war. which is something that most American politicians, including Fillmore, can see. But the situation in the Far East is something they don't understand and can't understand. Fillmore wants to hear Liang Zhao's opinions in this regard. American telegraph companies are basically private companies, and many confidential government information is transmitted through these telegraph companies. The news that the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom had contributed Jiangning, that is, Nanjing, and established its capital in Nanjing was transmitted from California to Washington through Liang Zhao's telegraph company. Because there was only one telegraph line from the west coast to the east, and this line was built by Liang Zhao. Liang Zhao had read this telegram before it was placed in Fillmore's office. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom captured Nanjing and renamed it Xianjing in March. Now it is June. At this time, Lin Fengxiang and Li Keifeng's Northern Expedition Army have already taken the secret road, rushed to Yandu, and headed straight to the Qing demon's lair, wanting to capture the Qing demon's head, Emperor Xianfeng, alive. The treaty that Fillmore mentioned that the Qing government had signed with the United States was not only the relatively equal Qing-U.S. free immigration treaty signed by the two countries in 1852, but also the 5 ports trade regulations, customs tariffs signed in Wangsha Village, Macau in July 1844, immediately after the signing of the British Nanjing Treaty, that is, the unequal treaty of the Wangsha Treaty. Except for the territorial indemnity rights that the British obtained in the Treaty of Nanjing, the United States also obtained all other rights. Since the terms of the American Treaty of Wangsha were more complete and detailed, in October of that year, France also signed the Treaty of Huangpu with the Qing government based on the Treaty of Wangsha. Fillmore attached no less importance to the Treaty of Wangsha than to the long-term treaty and the Treaty of Amity signed with the Tokugawa shogunate of Japan last year. Support the Qing dynasty. China is a secular country. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom is a group of fanatical religious elements with romantic fantasies. It is impossible to replace the Qing government. Liang Zhao gave Fillmore a very clear answer. He had no good feelings for the Qing dynasty, but he also had no good feelings for the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. As the leaders of the peasant uprising army, Hong Xiuquan was not a man of great talent and strategy like Zhu Yuanzhang. He was just a cult leader with a false name and no emperor. Even if Hong Xiuquan had 1/10 of Zhu Yuanzhang's ability, Liang Zhao was willing to raise money to invest in Hong Xiuquan. What future can a regime that makes decisions by dancing with gods and being possessed by the Father and the Brother of Heaven have? From the uprising in 1851 to the fall of the regime in 1864, no Jinshi defected to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom regime, which is very telling. It shows that the ruling class of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom did not know that they had to rely on landlords and gentry to rule the country after the uprising. And 6 years before Zhu Yuanzhang became the king of Wu, he had already had Jinshi of the Yuan dynasty represented by Liu Bowen serving him, winning the support of landlords and gentry in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, helping him to establish a stable ruling base in Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and laying the foundation for unifying the country. Liang Zhao had no intention of denying the justice of the vast number of peasants in the Taiping army resisting the Qing government. He just despised the majority of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's ignorant and pleasure-seeking leaders. As for the few sober leaders within the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, they were just pitiful burial objects. It would be better to support a local warlord than to support the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Furthermore, before a local warlord with the ability to unify the country emerges in China, Liang Zhao still hopes that a Qing government can exist. If the Qing government collapses ahead of time, given the greed of Tsarist Russia, the future of China's northern territory will be unpredictable, which is not what Liang Zhao wants to see. Of course, choosing to stand on the side of the Qing government between the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom and the Qing government is also in line with the practical interests of the United States, because the Qing government recognizes the Wangsha Treaty, and Liang Zhao still needs to obtain immigrants from China continuously to expand his base in California. I thought you would talk to me at length about the details and situation in China, Fillmore laughed. It would take more than 3 days and 3 nights to talk about China's affairs. I think you have just been re-elected and there are still many things to deal with. You don't have so much time, Liang Zhao replied. What you need is an indirect and reliable answer as a reference. I see. Fillmore nodded, and then talked about the issue of Japan. The American minister to Japan, His Excellency Townsend Harris, and Colonel Deng Yan, the commander-in-chief of the American garrison in Nagasaki, also called. Following us, the warships of Britain, France, the Netherlands, and Russia have successively sailed into Edo Bay, demanding to sign a trade treaty, and asked me how to deal with this matter. Chapter 332, Chaos in the Near East and Far East. If these countries are asking the Japanese shogunate to open ports for trade, then that's fine. Fillmore picked up the pipe on the table and said. Fillmore is a more pragmatic politician. He also knows that with the current strength of the United States, it is impossible to exclude other powers from Japan and let the United States monopolize Japan. After Britain knocked on the door of the Qing dynasty, the United States also took advantage of the British and bullied Qing officials who did not understand the international situation to sign the Wangsha Treaty and enjoy all the rights and interests in the Nanjing Treaty, except for the cession of land and compensation. Are there countries that have territorial claims and compensation demands against Japan? Liang Zhao knew what Fillmore wanted to say. It was nothing more than Russia's request to obtain a permanent concession in Nagasaki like the United States. In addition, Russia also claimed a sky-high price of 8 million taels of silver from the Japanese shogunate on the grounds that Russian whaling ships and crews also encountered shipwrecks on the coast of Japan and received unfair treatment. These are not the most important. The most important one for the Russian Empire is to require the Japanese shogunate authorities not to interfere in the internal affairs of the Ezo people, especially the Ezo Island. The so-called Ezo Island is the Hokkaido Island of later generations. Among the administrative divisions of Japan in later generations, 1 city, 1 road, 2 prefectures and 43 counties, Hokkaido is the only one. In the mid-19th century, the Hokkaido region, and even the northern part of Honshu Island, did not belong to Japan, but was under the control of the Ezo people, that is, the Ainu people. At this time, the Ezo people lived in the area centered on Ezo Island, and their activities included the Kuril Islands, the bitter cold land in the north of Honshu Island, and China's Sakhalin Island. The barbarians conquered by the Tokugawa family's generals did not refer to barbarians in general, but to the Ezo people. The Chinese are more accustomed to calling these people Guwei, Kuai or Koai people. Japan completed its control over Ezo Island during the Meiji Restoration, that is, in 1869, and completed the integration of Ezo Island and completely eliminated the influence of the local indigenous people after the Russo-Japanese War. Japan's practice of eliminating the indigenous people of Northeast Asia is exactly the same as Russia's practice of eliminating the Chinese and local native ethnic groups in the Far East. Both use physical means to eliminate these foreigners to the greatest extent, and then fill these places with prisoners from their own ethnic groups, that is, the Russians and Yamadas, to achieve the so-called assimilation. Deng Yan had already told him about the Russian Empire's demands on the Japanese shogunate, and the Japanese shogunate authorities also hoped that he could help, but Liang Zhao couldn't pretend to know everything in front of Fillmore, so as not to embarrass Fillmore. Yes, Russia wants to get involved in Ezo Island. This nation's greed for land is endless. In the Near East, it has already stretched out its paw to the Ottoman Empire. I didn't expect that it could free up another hand to stretch to the Far East, Fillmore said righteously. The concession in Nagasaki was won with the blood of American soldiers. And the compensation was also war reparations. Why can the Russians also obtain these rights? Liang Zhao knew what Fillmore was thinking at this time. It was nothing more than that the British ceded Hong Kong Island from the Qing dynasty through war and obtained war reparations, and the United States signed a trade treaty behind them. Why should the Russians follow the United States to ask Japan to cede land and pay compensation? This is against the rules. Although this is the rule among bandits, the rules among bandits are still rules. The financial resources of the Japanese government are limited. Once Russia's claim attempt succeeds, it will inevitably affect the speed at which the Japanese authorities repay our debts. In this matter, my suggestion is to put pressure on the Russians and help the Japanese shogunate. We Americans can also get a favor, Liang Zhao analyzed slowly. The United States is putting pressure on Russia in Northeast Asia. I think Britain and France will stand on our side, and the Qing dynasty will also stand on our side. We can also get some unexpected benefits from the Qing dynasty. After hearing what Liang Zhao said, Fillmore instantly became interested and asked, our pressure on Russia in the Far East did indirectly help Britain and France share some of the pressure in the Near East, but why would the Qing dynasty stand on our side? I don't quite understand this. Russia not only covets Ezo Island, but also Qing's Sakhalin Island to the north of Ezo Island, which is also a place coveted by Russia. Even the entire outer northeast region has been coveted by Russia for a long time. More than 100 years ago, Qing and Russia had a war over the territorial dispute in outer northeast. Liang Zhao took a sip of water and continued. We can recognize the Qing dynasty's legitimate sovereignty over the outer northeast and Sakhalin Island, and provide some help when necessary, and the Qing dynasty will be grateful to us. Then what can we, the United States, get? Just the gratitude of the Qing dynasty. Fillmore frowned. The Qing Empire still has sovereignty over Izo Island, but Izo is not a core vassal state like Korea and Vietnam. The Qing Empire has never paid much attention to these marginal vassal states. We can obtain the sovereignty of Izo Island from the Qing Empire and replace the Qing Empire as the suzerain of Izo Island. By then, we can legitimately squeeze out Russian and Japanese forces from Izo Island and occupy Izo Island alone. The indigenous population of Izo Island is small, and we have the opportunity to slowly transform the island into territory belonging to the United States. This 83,000 square kilometers of island will become a nail inserted by the United States in the Far East. It can be used to curb the rise of Japan and stop Russia's endless expansion in the Far East. It can be said that it kills two birds with one stone. More importantly, if this island becomes American territory in the future, the United States will become a superpower with territories spanning the Americas and Asia. And the American people will also remember that this great achievement was started during your tenure as the great President Fillmore. Liang Zhao made another pie for Fillmore. If someone else had offered him such a big pie, Fillmore would have sneered and thought the other person was crazy. But if it was Liang Zhao who offered him such a big pie, Fillmore was willing to believe it. Because Liang Zhao had the ability to fulfill the pie he had offered. A large part of the reason why he was able to be re-elected now was that he supported Liang Zhao and Perry in the successful expedition to Japan, which made his personal reputation reach its peak during the presidential election and gave him a great advantage in the election. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who would win or lose in this election. Fillmore put down his pipe and tapped the walnut tabletop with his index finger restlessly. Since Liang Zhao had offered him such a big pie, it must not have been in vain. Fillmore knew what Liang Zhao wanted. If you are in charge of the affairs of the Far East again, the 3 standing regiments will be stretched to the limit. How about this? I will give you another regiment. When necessary, you only need to ask me by telegram, and you can use this regiment and the Nagasaki garrison to safeguard the rights and interests of the Far East of the United States. A regiment. Liang Zhao wanted more than that. Besides, the half-regiment of American troops stationed in Nagasaki was originally his troops. If he wanted to use this half-regiment, he didn't even need to ask for permission. He just needed to write a letter to Deng Yan, the commander of the garrison in Japan. Washington and California are separated by mountains and rivers, and transportation is inconvenient. There is also the Pacific Ocean between California and the Far East. If the affairs of the Far East are consulted with you on everything and then discussed and decided by Congress, the efficiency will be too low. I hope to get your authorization, some authorization to handle Far Eastern affairs, Liang Zhao said. Liang Zhao's appetite is not ordinary big, Fillmore sneered in his heart. But there is no way. When dealing with Far Eastern affairs, California not only has the geographical advantage, and Liang Zhao is indeed the person who knows the Far East best in America. Fillmore paced back and forth in the office for a long time before he said, except for Japan's tariffs and the use of Nagasaki and California garrisons to interfere in Far Eastern issues, you only need to inform me of the rest of the matters by telegram. Chapter 333 Found a Treasure. After meeting Fillmore, Liang Zhao took a train to leave Washington and head to New York. Obtaining the president's authorization for Far Eastern affairs was the biggest gain of this trip, which was far more useful than giving him a regiment. Liang Zhao's biggest threat on the Californian land came from Mexico, and there was not much difference between using 3 regiments or 4 regiments in an armed conflict with Mexico. After returning to New York, he proposed to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth agreed as expected. Liang Zhao then proposed to Vanderbilt about holding a wedding. As for the wedding of the two, he would do what Elizabeth's sisters did. However, this proposal was rejected by Vanderbilt, who insisted that Liang Zhao's parents attend the wedding, and the wedding must be held in New York. Elizabeth is his youngest daughter. When his previous daughters got married, the celebrities in New York did not show much favor, which was a knot in Vanderbilt's heart. He hopes to earn back the face he lost before through this wedding, and now Liang Zhao's status and identity are not comparable to Clark and others. Another thing is that Vanderbilt heard from Chinese businessmen in New York that if you marry, you will be a wife, and if you run away, you will be a concubine. He didn't want his daughter to marry unclearly. This also gave Liang Zhao a headache. His headache was not the betrothal gifts, but to get his parents to attend the wedding. It was no problem to let his mother Deng Lan go to New York, but the problem was his father. His father's current appearance of being neither human nor ghost would definitely embarrass him in New York. If he couldn't let his useless father come, he could only let his grandfather go, but his grandfather Liang Weiming was nearly 70 years old, and it was hard to say whether this old bone could withstand the fatigue of the journey. Liang Zhao had to make an engagement with Vanderbilt first, and wait until all his people gathered in New York to hold the wedding. Because Garrett, the vice president of the Atlantic Railway Company, performed well and was a trustworthy person, Liang Zhao promoted Garrett to the president of the Atlantic Railway Company, responsible for the operation of the Atlantic Railway Company. Of course, he was also responsible for assisting Vanderbilt in the construction of the Pacific Railway. This huge project would be the most important project of the Atlantic Railway Company in the next 4 years. Garrett and his assistant rushed to New York. In addition to thanking Liang Zhao for his promotion, Garrett also hoped that Liang Zhao could invest in the acquisition of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company and take over the large market of Pennsylvania. $2.6 million, with the reputation and assets of the Atlantic Railroad Company, can't it borrow $2.6 million from the bank? Liang Zhao couldn't help but frown. The current market of the railway industry is very good, there is no need to be too conservative, and we should borrow from the bank when we need to. After speaking, Liang Zhao, who felt a little thirsty, picked up the water on the table. I agree with your point of view, but the Atlantic Railroad Company has currently borrowed $8.5 million from the bank. We have borrowed from all the banks that can lend, so I came to you, Garrett said. $8.5 million. Liang Zhao almost spit out the water in his mouth. He took back what he had just said. Garrett's business strategy is not conservative, but radical. What does $8.5 million mean? 2 years ago, when Liang Zhao just acquired the Baltimore-Ohio Railroad Company to form the Atlantic Railroad Company, its assets were only more than $3 million. The management of the Atlantic Railroad was far more radical than he had imagined. Don't you know? We have sent you a telegram to ask for your approval for every loan and every acquisition plan of the Atlantic Railroad. In addition, this is the financial statement of the Atlantic Railroad in 1852. Liang Zhao's reaction also surprised Garrett. He winked at the young assistant beside him and said, "Give the financial statement in your hand to Mr. Liang for review." Liang Zhao thought carefully and realized that he had indeed asked for his approval for these loans and acquisitions of the Atlantic Railroad. However, the amount of each loan ranged from tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Liang Zhao did not pay much attention to it. He did not expect that the Atlantic Railroad had already borrowed a total of $8.5 million. Fortunately, the American railroad industry has been in a state of rapid development in recent years. There is nothing wrong with high-leverage operation. As long as the water of the Atlantic Railroad is squeezed out before 1857, that is, before the American railroad bubble bursts, it will be fine. Liang Zhao carefully looked through the financial statements of Atlantic Railway Company, and said as he did so, Atlantic Railway Company has many financial talents. This financial statement is well done. Who did it? I hope you didn't falsify the accounts. I did this financial statement. Atlantic Railway Company is a subsidiary of the American Group. The financial statement is also made according to the requirements of the group. Every account on it is well documented. Before Garrett could explain, his assistant stood up and said, "Oh? You did it." Liang Zhao looked at this young man who was younger than him curiously, and looked at the scribbled signature on the financial statement. It took him a while to figure out that this somewhat scribbled signature was Andrew. Andrew? Liang Zhao was instantly interested when he saw the name. After closing the financial statements, he curiously asked the young man, "What's your name?" "When did you come to work for the Atlantic Railroad?" "Andrew Carnegie, sir. I used to work as a private telegraph operator and secretary for Mr. Scott, the director of the Western District of the Pennsylvania Railroad, which is the railroad that Mr. Garrett is now going to acquire. Now I work as a private telegraph operator and secretary for Mr. Garrett, and I also have a part-time job in the financial department," Carnegie answered confidently and calmly. Andrew Carnegie worked as a private telegraph operator and secretary for Mr. Scott of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Liang Zhao was sure that this young man, who was about 18 years old, was the famous steel tycoon in history, a legendary tycoon who single-handedly made the steel production of the United States surpass that of the United Kingdom. It is rumored that this person is a well-known workaholic. When he worked for Scott, he held several positions at the same time and was able to do it with ease. Garrett had picked up a treasure. Liang Zhao did disclose the financial statements of Xiangshan Gold Mining to the subsidiaries of the American Group, and asked them to use the financial statements of Xiangshan Gold Mining as a template to make financial statements. However, there were few financial statements that satisfied him. If this financial statement was made by Carnegie, Liang Zhao would not be surprised. Whether it was Carnegie or Rockefeller, these legendary tycoons of the Gilded Age had one thing in common, that is, they were not only smart, but also very good at learning. Isn't it tiring for one person to do so many jobs? Liang Zhao asked back. No, I can learn a lot of things in the Atlantic Railway Company that I can't learn in the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, which makes me full of energy, Carnegie said very calmly. And I need money. More work can make more money to make me and my family live a decent life. What is your monthly salary? Liang Zhao asked. All the jobs add up to a monthly salary of $85, Carnegie replied. A monthly salary of $85 is also a high income in New York, not to mention in Baltimore. Liang Zhao still hoped to recruit such a rare genius as Carnegie. He poached Garrett in front of Garrett, be my assistant, and the monthly salary is $500. This, being an assistant to Liang Zhao, was something Carnegie wanted very much. He could definitely learn more from being an assistant to Liang Zhao than from being an assistant to Garrett. Carnegie suppressed his ecstasy and looked at Garrett and said, I am now an employee of Mr. Garrett. I signed a contract with Mr. Garrett and will serve Mr. Garrett for 5 years, Mr. Garrett, what do you think? Liang Zhao asked Garrett. You have already asked, how can I refuse? Garrett regretted bringing Carnegie and himself to see Liang Zhao today. But it's okay. This kid is capable and has a bright future. He has more future with you than with me. It's just about the acquisition of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Having just poached Garrett's people, he should also return a favor to Garrett. Moreover, this acquisition plan is reasonable. Liang Zhao said, go back to Baltimore and wait for news from Bank of America. As soon as the two finished talking about the acquisition of the Pennsylvania Railroad, Connie walked into the office and reported to Liang Zhao, Sir, Mr. August has returned to New York from Paris. Mr. Lionel from London and Mr. James from Paris are also here. They are now at the New York dock. They hope to discuss the kerosene business with you in person. Where are they now? Liang Zhao asked. Lionel is the eldest son of Nathan, the London branch of the Rothschild family. After Nathan passed away, Lionel took over his father's business and successfully became a British MP. As for James, because he is the youngest son of the founder Meyer and the youngest, he has become the only one of the Rothschild 5 tigers who has survived to this day. In terms of wealth, Lionel's London branch is undoubtedly the richest, but in terms of seniority, his uncle James is still older, and the wealth of James's branch living in Paris is not much different from that of the London branch. Therefore, these two people are currently the two most influential people in the Rothschild family. Liang Zhao was not surprised that the two big men of the Rothschild family came to New York in person. The kerosene business is worth their personal trip. Since these two are here, the technical drawings and experimental artillery of Amster Company that he has been thinking about must have arrived in New York. We are almost in New York, Connie said. Should we go to the New York port to greet these two distinguished guests? Yes, we should greet them. Liang Zhao got up, grabbed a coat and left the office, picked a good horse from the stable of the manor and rode to the New York dock. Chapter 334. A distinguished visitor. James and Lionel, uncle and nephew, sailed into New York Harbor on a 2,000-ton luxury yacht, the Grace. This is a propeller-driven steamship. Without the bulky paddle wheels on both sides of the ship, the yacht looks very elegant. The exterior decoration of the ship is also extremely luxurious. There is an exquisitely carved figurehead at the bow. From a distance, you can tell that the owner of this yacht is either rich or noble. The Polaris, which was once famous in America and talked about with great relish, is inevitably eclipsed by the Grace. After seeing this ship, Vanderbilt even had the idea of rebuilding a luxury yacht comparable to the Grace. Of course, this is just an idea. Most of Vanderbilt's shipyards have been handed over to Liang Zhao, and he no longer has the ability to build large luxury yachts on his own. Liang Zhao greeted James and Lionel, uncle and nephew, at the busy New York Harbor dock. Under the attention of the crowd, The two walked off the Grace yacht shoulder to shoulder, and neither of them was willing to give way. Lionel is richer than his uncle, and James is older than his nephew, and is his elder. This is why they are not willing to give in to each other. What surprised Liang Zhao was that Lionel was not bald, but had a very thick head of hair. Lionel seemed to be willing to show off his proud thick hair. He was well dressed, with a neatly folded bow tie on his chest, but he didn't wear a hat, as if he was deliberately showing off his proud thick hair. It is very rare for a middle-aged Jewish man like Lionel to not be bald. This is the first time Liang Zhao has seen a man who is not only not bald, but also has thick hair. Liang Zhao's subordinate Strauss is also a Jew. He is only in his 20s this year, and his hairline has begun to move up significantly, and his hair is getting thinner and thinner. I'm afraid Strauss will be envious of Lionel's hair. As for Lionel's uncle, he wrapped his head tightly with a hat. Needless to say, the amount of hair on his head must not be optimistic. America welcomes you, New York welcomes you, Counselor Lionel and Sir James. Liang Zhao welcomed the two. Liang Zhao had done his homework on the Rothschild family during this period a long time ago, and he had a certain understanding of this family. Of the 5 branches of the Rothschild family, except for Lionel in London, who had no title, the other 4 branches had barren titles in their respective countries. During the Dorian period in Britain, it was quite difficult for foreigners to obtain British titles, especially foreign Jews who still had a bad reputation in Europe. It can be said that Lionel's father Nathan had stacked up the debts of obtaining a British title. Although Lionel's father Nathan made a lot of contributions to the British government, he never got the British title he dreamed of throughout his life, which was one of the few regrets in his father's life. It's nice to meet you, General Liang. When I was in London, I heard that there was a 23-year-old general in America. I didn't expect that we would meet in New York today. Liang Zhao made a good first impression on Lionel. Liang Zhao has a handsome appearance, a tall and sturdy figure, and decent manners. The only thing that makes Lionel feel sorry is that Liang Zhao's English has a strong American flavor and is not upper class enough. It would be great if Liang Zhao could speak authentic London English. You have a very good vision. You have found the right person to cooperate with our Rothschild family for such a huge business project as kerosene. Our family has a sales network in every major city on the European continent, James said with a smile. As long as you can provide enough goods, you can drill a steady stream of real gold and silver on the European continent. The Rothschild family can become bigger and bigger in Europe, which has a lot to do with the abilities of the 5 sons of old Mayor. Perhaps it is because of the smoke coming out of the old mayor's ancestral grave that his 5 sons are more capable than one another, and none of them has lived up to his high hopes. They have further expanded and strengthened the Rothschild family's industry in their respective countries, and even monopolized the financial lifeline of a country. James's vision is naturally not comparable to that of a straw bag like Hill's. From August's words, he keenly realized that the kerosene business was a very promising business with a terrifying market size. Therefore, he immediately summoned several nephews to discuss the matter, and finally decided to go to America with Lionel to meet Liang Zhao in person. Can you really increase the production of kerosene to more than 15 million liters in a year? More than 50 million liters in 2 years. Lionel was in contact with kerosene for the first time. He was a person who liked to try new things. Before August brought kerosene back to Europe, a small amount of kerosene from California had already flowed into the British market, but this was kerosene produced in California in the early days, and the quality was even worse than the kerosene produced now. Lionel found that this kerosene burned stably and had better lighting effects than other plant fuels and animal fuels. However, the amount of kerosene in the British market at that time was very scarce, and there were many different opinions on its source, so Lionel did not take it too seriously. After knowing that this new fuel was all produced in California, USA, and Liang Zhao had the ability to expand the kerosene production to more than 50 million liters within 2 years, and the cost was very low, Lionel could no longer remain calm. He knew what it meant to monopolize a daily consumable. Without it, it was just a necessity like clothes and salt. If you could monopolize a necessity, it would not only mean a steady stream of money, but also mean that you could influence or even control the politics of a country. This is why he was willing to come from London to this remote place in America. As long as you can provide me with enough low-interest loans to expand production capacity, this amount of production is not a problem at all, Liang Zhao said confidently, and then changed the subject. I wonder if you have brought the things I want. The things he was referring to were naturally the artillery technical drawings of the Amster Company and the experimental artillery. Lionel smiled slyly and said to Liang Zhao, "Mr. Liang, are you interested in visiting our yacht?" "Of course I am interested," Liang Zhao smiled. "The Elegance yacht is not a dangerous place, so why not go on the yacht to take a look?" The Grace belonged to Lionel, who was a distinguished member of parliament and had a very prominent position in London, so naturally no one dared to search his yacht. The technical drawings and artillery samples stolen from the Amster Company in the explosion were probably hidden on the Grace. Who would dare to believe that a member of parliament of a country would plan the explosion of a military factory in his own country and use his own yacht to transport the stolen technical drawings and artillery samples to a country on the other side of the ocean that did not have a harmonious relationship with his motherland? Lionel took Liang Zhao aboard the Grace yacht in the envious eyes of a group of New York nobles. Chapter 335, No Rabbit, No Eagle. The Elegance not only has all the facilities for eating, drinking and having fun, but also has hundreds of strong and armed private bodyguards, and even naval guns. Liang Zhao once suspected that this was not only a large yacht, but also a warship. Lionel led Liang Zhao to a cabin, where 4 cannon-shaped objects were placed. The reason why they were called cannon-shaped objects was because they were covered with a black curtain. Liang Zhao could only judge that they were 4 cannons based on their rough shapes. Lionel waved his hand gently, signaling his men to lift the curtain. After the curtain was lifted, the true face of the 4 cannons was revealed in front of Liang Zhao. 2 of the 4 cannons were relatively mature muzzle-loading rifled cannons, and the other 2 were breech-loading rifled cannons. Liang Zhao carefully observed the barrels of the 4 cannons. The barrels of these 4 cannons no longer used the integral casting process, but adopted the latest winding process. The material of the gun barrel was also changed from mainstream pig iron to a wrought iron jacket wrapped around a steel inner barrel to enhance the strength and toughness of the gun body and extend the life of the gun barrel. This also means that these guns could withstand larger charges and have a longer range than traditional guns. The tail of the 2 breech-loading rifle guns has a unique tail bolt with a crank handle of the early Armstrong gun. This tail bolt was later called the Armstrong screw. This is the bolt-locked closed breech gun he wants, and it is also a technical difficulty that California gun engineers have not been able to overcome. Liang Zhao walked forward, held the crank on the tail bolt and turned it a few times, and then vertically lifted the gas-blocking device in front of the tail bolt, which was also a heavy iron block like a weight. Then Liang Zhao vertically stuffed the gas-blocking device back to a distance, turned the crank handle and used the tail bolt to tighten the gas-blocking device. This gas-blocking structure is called a vertical gas-blocking structure, which is very cleverly designed. After playing with the airtight structure of the cannon, Liang Zhao checked the muzzle. The caliber of the cannon is 1.75 inches, 45 mm, and the length of the barrel is about 1 meter, which is about 22 to 24 times the caliber. The weight of the cannon is roughly estimated to be over 300 kilograms. If the gun carriage is included, it is estimated to weigh about 700 kilograms. In general, this is a small and precise cannon. "Are there any shells?" Liang Zhao turned around and asked. Liang Zhao is a soldier, and being able to skillfully manipulate cannons is a very normal thing in the eyes of Lionel and James. But in the eyes of the accompanying French gun engineer, it is a bit abnormal. This is a brand new cannon. Before boarding the Grace, they had never come into contact with this kind of cannon. In the end, it took them a while to figure out how to operate this kind of cannon. They felt that the design structure of this cannon was very delicate. And this American general seemed to have come into contact with this kind of cannon before. He could manipulate this unique airtight structure with a very clear mind as soon as he got started. Lionel winked at his men, and 2 of them took them and pried open 4 ammunition boxes on the side. The 4 ammunition boxes were filled with solid bullets, grenades, explosive shells, and shrapnel shells. The types of ammunition were already very complete. It can be seen that although this type of artillery is still in the experimental stage, the degree of completion is already very high. Liang Zhao picked up a solid bullet and weighed it in his hand. It weighed about 6 pounds. The solid bullet looked like an enlarged version of the mini bullet. The shell was engraved with threaded grooves that matched the rifling. "General Liang, we have been very concerned about your affairs," Lionel said. "Our Rothschild family is so sincere, shouldn't you also show your sincerity?" Of course, Liang Zhao smiled. "It would be better if we could see the technical drawings again." "You can see the technical drawings," But you have to wait until we see your kerosene factory. Lionel didn't show Liang Zhao the relevant drawings before visiting Liang Zhao's kerosene factory. The purpose of his special trip to America this time was to see Liang Zhao's kerosene production plant with his own eyes to confirm whether Liang Zhao's plan to increase kerosene production to 50 million liters within 2 years was reliable. After playing with finance for so many years, he had cheated many people, and in the end he was worried that he would be cheated. Although August repeatedly told him that Liang Zhao was a reliable person, Lionel still only believed what he saw with his own eyes. "You want to visit my factory?" Liang Zhao couldn't help but frown. "Why? Is it not possible?" Lionel looked at Liang Zhao. "For such a large cooperation project, I want to visit your factory. This request is reasonable, right? Reasonable, very reasonable. For such a large cooperation project, you should be cautious," Liang Zhao said. "It's just that my factory is in California, where transportation is not very convenient. It doesn't matter. For the cooperation between us, I think it is necessary to go there. The children of the Rothschild family are not as delicate as you think. They can still bear the hardship of traveling," Lionel said with his hands behind his back. "I heard that the California government is in financial difficulties at present. Our Rothschild family has always been very enthusiastic. In Europe, we are committed to helping the government solve their financial crisis. As long as Zhao can pass our assessment, I think we can still provide Zhao with a loan of £1 million, James on the side also said with a smile. "Thank you for your concern. The financial problems of the California government have been solved, and there is no need to borrow foreign debt at present." Liang Zhao politely declined James's kindness. "The Rothschild family is not a good person. Their money is not so easy to get, especially the money of this James. During the reign of Louis XIV, James did sell bonds that saved France and restored the credibility of the French government. But all this also has a price, that is, the financial lifeline of France has been controlled by James since then. Letting a Frenchman control the economic lifeline of California is something Liang Zhao cannot accept. This is also the reason why he insisted on issuing California government bonds on Wall Street. Wall Street is no longer a thing, it is also American capital, and the federal government still has some constraints on Wall Street. The appearance of these domestic capitals is not too ugly. But foreign capital doesn't care so much, especially Rothschild's borderless capital." "Oh? That's a pity." Liang Zhao's reaction surprised James. "But I still need your £1 million to expand the capacity of my refinery," Liang Zhao added. "That's great. I just have some spare money waiting to lend to people who are worth investing." James squinted his eyes and said, "I heard that California can also produce a firearm with performance comparable to the Dresser needle-fired gun. His Majesty Napoleon III is also very interested in your new rifle. The French army is considering replacing it with a new rifle. I can still say a few words in front of His Majesty. You know, the French army is the first army in Europe. The first army in Europe is replacing firearms. This is an inestimable market," James has made it very clear. As long as the two sides cooperate happily, he will recommend a California-made Walter M1851 rifle to Napoleon III to equip the French army. The Minié rifle was first invented by France, but due to the political turmoil in France before the establishment of the Second French Empire, the replacement of military weapons was also shelved. This has also led to the current embarrassment of the French army. As the inventor of the Minié rifle, the French Army's standard rifle is still the old MLE 1842 smoothbore rifle, almost becoming the last power to equip rifled rifles. On the other side of the English Channel, Britain began to replace rifled rifles in 1851, and France was obviously lagging behind in this regard. Even next year, when the French Army participated in the Crimean War in 1854, the French Army was still equipped with the old MLE 1842 and MLE 1853. Although judging from the year of the weapon naming, 1853 should be a rifled gun handle, at least it should be rifling the barrel of the smoothbore gun like the Americans, and used as a transitional weapon. However, the MLE 1853 is a serious smoothbore rifle. In the middle and late stages of the war, a small number of elite French troops were able to replace the MLE 1854, which was the first serious rifle of the French army, but the equipment ratio was still very touching. The equipment problem is also the reason why the French casualties in the Crimean battlefield were much higher than those of the British allies. The British army suffered less than 5,000 casualties in the Crimean battlefield, while the French army alone had more than 30,000 casualties. Liang Zhao was very happy to sell weapons to France. Although with France's industrial capacity, it is completely possible to fully understand the technology of the Walter M1851 rifle, but France will rush to join the war next year. Even if the technology is fully understood, there is no time to build a new production line for mass production, and it still depends on Liang Zhao to provide ready-made arms. Pulling Napoleon II during the war can also get a personal favor. After all, after the Crimean War, the American Civil War will soon come, and California also needs the recognition and assistance of the international community. If you want to become a great power, you need the existing great powers to recognize and accept your existence first. France is obviously more willing to recognize America as a great power than Britain, the waters of Constantinople and the Ottoman Empire. The Mossets frigate, flying the St. Andrew's Cross flag of the Russian Imperial Navy, appeared on the Bosphorus coast of Constantinople. At the bow of this Russian Imperial Navy cruiser stood a majestic Russian Imperial Marshal. His chest was covered with dense metals, which showed his extraordinary status in the Russian Empire. He is Prince Menshikov, the Russian Empire's Navy Marshal. Of course, these are just two of his identities. In addition, he is also the Tsar's adjutant and the Governor-General of Finland. Menshikov can have so many prominent identities not because of his outstanding performance in the Patriotic War of 1812 and the Russo-Turkish War of 1828. This was largely due to his wealthy ancestors. His great-great-grandfather, Alexander Danilovich Menshikov, was the first Russian field marshal and the closest comrade-in-arms of Peter the Great. This was why Nicholas I trusted Menshikov so much. Nicholas I often compared himself to Peter the Great, so he had high expectations for the great-grandson of the first Russian field marshal. Peter the Great had a capable minister like Alexander Danilovich Menshikov as his right-hand man, so his great-grandson could naturally become the right-hand man of Nicholas I. Chapter 336, Sorry I can't see you off. This time, Menshikov, a noble of the Russian Empire, came to Constantinople as the Tsar's plenipotentiary envoy. His apparent purpose was to take back all the rights of the Orthodox Church in the Ottoman Empire, such as the right to use the Holy Church and provide security for the parishioners of the Orthodox Church. Of course, the religious issue was just one of the excuses. The foundation of the Russian Empire was the Tsar, the Orthodox Church, and expansion. The Russian Empire pointed its sword at the Ottoman Empire in the name of the Orthodox Church, but in fact it was aiming at the outlet of the Black Sea, or even Constantinople. Menshikov arrogantly sent a message to the Ottoman envoy, asking the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire, similar to the Prime Minister of China, second only to the Prime Minister in the Ottoman Empire, to personally dress up and go to the port of Constantinople to welcome the plenipotentiary envoy of the great Russian Empire. If this request was barely reasonable, then Menshikov's next request was indeed too humiliating to the Ottoman Empire and his Sultan. Menshikov used very tough words to ask the Ottoman Sultan Abdülmecid to wait for his arrival at the palace gate in person, instead of him going to the court to pay homage to the Ottoman Sultan. Mejid, who was in his prime, was trembling with anger at Menshikov's rude behavior. The Tsar sent a reckless man with no diplomatic experience as an envoy to Constantinople with an aggressive face, clearly to stir up trouble. Mejid naturally did not agree to this rude request. He is the Sultan and the monarch, and no matter how powerful Menshikov is in the Russian Empire, he is at best a minister. Even if the Tsar came, it would be a courtesy to go out of the palace to greet the Tsar. And this Menshikov, a mere minister, a plenipotentiary envoy, actually asked him, a sultan, to wait for him at the palace gate. Mejid was not in a hurry to reply to Menshikov, but first summoned the British ambassador to Constantinople, Stratford Canning. He wanted to know the attitude of the British. Canning, dressed in a suit and tie, came to the palace with his head held high and bowed deeply to Mejid. This made Mejid feel a little more comfortable. At least on the surface, the British were more polite than the arrogant Russians. When Mejid explained to Canning the rude behavior and intention of Menshikov, Canning immediately made clear his attitude, which was also the attitude of London. Don't pay attention to a reckless man like Menshikov, and don't pay attention to the rude demands of the Russians, let alone make concessions. Canning's clear answer made Mejid feel a little relieved, but the Sultan was still afraid of the huge Russia. What if the Tsar declares war on us? The military strength of the Ottoman Empire alone cannot resist the attack of Tsarist Russia, The direct dispatch of Russian troops was the problem that Mejid was most worried about. Mejid knew that his military strength could not compete with the Russian Empire. The Russians dare not start a war. If they dare, the British Empire will never stand idly by. We will stand firmly on the side of the Sultan, Canning replied confidently and calmly. Canning's promise instantly gave Mejid confidence. Since Menshikov humiliated him, he would naturally humiliate him back. Mejid changed into a nightgown and came to the palace in slippers to meet Menshikov. He wanted to show Menshikov the attitude of the Ottoman Empire in person. The Ottoman Sultan did not personally go to the palace gate to greet Menshikov, which made Menshikov furious. He thought he was being neglected and shouted that he would bring an army to the Sultan to ask for punishment. Menshikov came to the palace shouting all the way. At this time, he was more like a rogue street hooligan than a special envoy of a country. Just as Menshikov was about to step into the palace, the Sultan's personal guard standing at the door of the hall stopped Menshikov. If you want to see the Sultan, you need to bend down and bow to show respect before you can enter the hall. Menshikov glanced coldly at the Sultan in the hall, who was wearing a nightgown and slippers, eating grapes and drinking red wine leisurely. Menshikov's anger reached its peak. He suddenly raised his voice and shouted, "I am not here to see your Sultan. I am here to deliver the letter of credence from His Majesty the Great Tsar. If I delay this state affairs, even your Sultan cannot bear this responsibility, let alone you, a soldier." After saying this, Menshikov was about to force his way into the palace, but he was immediately blocked by the Sultan's sturdy guards. "Sorry, Your Excellency, the Sultan has ordered. No matter who comes, as long as you don't bow, you can't enter the palace." Menshikov's face turned red with anger, but in order to hand over the letter of credence to the Ottoman Sultan in person, he decided to bow. Menshikov turned 180 degrees, facing north to the Sultan, and bowed to the sky. And in Mejid's sight, Menshikov stuck his butt out and entered the palace with his butt facing him. This scene not only stunned the Sultan's guards at the palace gate, but also the Ottoman ministers in the store and even the Sultan himself. Here is the letter from His Majesty the Tsar. His Majesty the Tsar has caused unfair treatment to Ottoman believers, and even shameful and cruel massacres in the Ottoman territory. Therefore, I have been appointed as the Tsar's plenipotentiary envoy to present the letter to the Ottoman Sultan. On the day the Ottoman Sultan receives the letter, he must recognize that the great Tsar Nicholas I is the protector of all Orthodox parish residents. The Ottoman Sultan must hand over the use of the Holy Church to the Orthodox believers and make a written guarantee. When necessary, His Majesty the Tsar has the right to send troops to protect the rights and interests of the residents of the Orthodox parishes in the Ottoman territory. Menshikov appeared in the palace with an arrogant attitude and read out the main contents of the letter to the Ottoman ministers and the Sultan in the palace. The unreasonable demands of Tsarist Russia made Mejid's face look very ugly. He threw the wine glass to the ground fiercely. "The Tsar is the protector of the Orthodox Church, and I am also the protector of Christianity. Go back and tell the Tsar that it is not his turn to interfere in the affairs of the Ottoman Empire. Religious issues have always been very sensitive issues in the Ottoman Empire. 1/3 of the population in the empire believes in Christianity, and Orthodox Christians are only a small part of this 1/3 of the population. Once the right to use the Holy Land Church is given to the Orthodox Christians as the Tsar wishes, Christians of other denominations will inevitably have opinions. Mejid will not easily give the right to use the Holy Land Church to the Orthodox Church, not to mention that Tsarist Russia also requires troops to be sent to the Ottoman Empire to protect the rights and interests of Orthodox Christians in the Ottoman Empire. This is even more unacceptable to Mejid. Who knows whether the Tsar cares about the Orthodox Christians in the Ottoman Empire or the land under the feet of these Orthodox Christians. Mejid knew clearly that things had come to this point, and there was no room for maneuver, and the Tsar would not make any concessions. The Russians did not dare to start a war. If they did, the British Empire would never stand idly by, and we would stand firmly on the side of the Sultan. The words of Canning, the British ambassador to Constantinople, echoed in Mejid's ears, which made Mejid more determined. Mejid made up his mind and tore up the Tsar's letter of credence in front of Menshikov, and then scattered the torn letters into the air. His resolute eyes pierced through the scraps of waste paper, and he coldly ordered Menshikov to leave. "Your Excellency the Special Envoy, please go back, I'm sorry I can't see you off." Chapter 337, City on the Oil Field. Menshikov was very surprised by the decisive and tough attitude of the Ottoman Sultan Mejid. Menshikov couldn't even believe that what he saw was real. In his script, The plot should be like this. The tough diplomatic attitude of the Tsar's plenipotentiary envoy would frighten the weak Sultan and then succumb. The final result would be that the Russian Empire would win without fighting, obtain the right to protect the Orthodox residents in the Ottoman Empire, and legitimately station troops in the Ottoman Empire. After that, the Russian Empire could slowly encroach on the territories along the dark coast of the Ottoman Empire, and even seize Constantinople, the former capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. And he himself would return home with honors, receive rewards and medals from the Tsar, and become a hero of the Russian Empire, on par with his great-grandfather and Marshal Kutuzov, who led the Russian army to defeat Napoleon's army in the Patriotic War of 1812. But reality did not follow the script that Menshikov had imagined. Nicholas I firmly believed that Britain would stand on his side on the issue of the Near East because he gave the British enough sweetness. Once Britain stood on his side, the attitudes of other powers on the European continent would be insignificant. France was defeated by Russia. The failure of the anti-French war severely damaged France, and it has not yet fully recovered. As for Prussia, it is just a small country. Not to mention the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In 1848, he had just helped the new Emperor Franz Joseph to suppress the revolution in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This younger generation owed him a huge favor. Nicholas I. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire wanted to stand on his side, it would stand on his side. Menshikov also believed in Nicholas I's views and believed in the Tsar's judgment. Unexpectedly, he suffered a setback when he just came to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Sultan Mejid dared to be so tough in his attitude towards himself. Where did his confidence come from? After a while of thinking, Menshikov vaguely had the answer. There must be a great power standing behind Mejid to support Mejid, and the strength of this great power is still very strong, at least not inferior to Russia. Thinking of this, Menshikov could not help but feel a chill. There were only two such powers in Europe, that is, Britain or France. After thinking of this, Menshikov was still deceiving himself, and continued to deceive himself, thinking that this power must be France. If it was France that supported the Ottomans, then there was nothing to be afraid of. After all, France was once defeated by the Russian Empire. That's right, it must be like this, it must be the French behind the scenes. Thinking of this, Menshikov felt much more relieved. His back instantly hardened again, and he said to Mejid arrogantly, "Sultan, please don't forget that the French were once defeated by a Russian Empire. I advise you not to have too high expectations of the French. I will give you 3 days to think about it. Come to me on my battleship when you have thought it through." After speaking, Menshikov angrily left with his sleeve swung. Menshikov returned to the Mossets frigate. He did not leave Constantinople immediately, but continued to stay in Constantinople, waiting for Mejid to change his mind and respectfully invite him back to the palace. However, the result was not what Menshikov wished. Mejid this time was the British man's spy, and he was not afraid of Menshikov's blackmail. 3 days later, the ashamed and angry Menshikov had to leave Constantinople in disgrace. On the other side of the ocean, Liang Zhao brought Lionel, James, August and others to Los Angeles. In just 3 years, Los Angeles has undergone earth-shaking changes. In 1850, the population of Los Angeles was only more than 1,600 people, and this was still due to the gold rush in San Francisco and Sacramento. In 1852, the population of Los Angeles soared to more than 30,000 people, becoming the third city-level administrative unit in California after San Francisco and Sacramento. This is the population counted in 1852. Now that 5 months have passed in 1853, Liang Zhao estimates that the current population of Los Angeles is around 50,000, or even more. The growth of Los Angeles population is not due to the gold rush in San Francisco and Sacramento, nor is it due to forced immigration, but rather to the local oil industry that has attracted so many people. When you get off the boat, you will see countless wooden oil derricks that are as dense as a jungle. These wooden derricks extend from the Los Angeles beach to the inland. Under the derricks, there are busy oil workers with red faces and happy smiles. The exploitation of oil has also caused the lush forests near Los Angeles to disappear, and the price of local wood has risen more than tenfold in a year. Many people even dig wells in their backyards, hoping that this black liquid can gush out of their backyards. Once an oil well is dug, it means that wealth from oil has been completely realized. Los Angeles people also call this black liquid black gold, water gold, and liquid gold. The discovery of oil also triggered a round of gold rush in Los Angeles. As soon as he landed, A pungent smell hit him in the face and went straight into Liang Zhao's mouth and nose. Due to the rise of the petrochemical industry in Los Angeles in 1852, the Los Angeles city government, which was originally financially tight, suddenly became wealthy, and the originally simple fishing village dock was expanded. Last year, due to the slow increase in gold production, the fiscal revenue of San Francisco, Sacramento, and even Nevada was not very optimistic. Only Los Angeles went against the trend and became a new economic miracle in California. After the expansion of the Los Angeles dock, the entire dock is much more spacious than before, and the supporting facilities are more complete. Now the Los Angeles dock can dock merchant ships with a displacement of 2,000 tons. When Los Angeles Mayor Deng Wenchen heard that Liang Zhao was coming, he greeted Liang Zhao at the Los Angeles dock early. Third brother, put on a mask, the smell here is strong. Deng Wenchen handed Liang Zhao and the guests who came to Los Angeles a snow-white cotton mask. You've gained a lot of weight recently. You've been living a better life in Los Angeles. Liang Zhao patted Deng Wenchen's sturdy shoulders. When they first came to California, the 5 Deng brothers were malnourished like him, and they were barely able to work. Now Deng Wenchen no longer looks malnourished. That's right. The gold industry in Nevada and Sacramento is not as prosperous as before. Now at least 2,000 to 3,000 people are pouring into Los Angeles every month to ask for food. I can hardly accommodate them here, Deng Wenchen said with a smile. In the past, he begged Liang Zhao for people, hoping to become the mayor as soon as possible. Now Liang Zhao wants to send people to Los Angeles specifically, and I'm afraid he will have to think about it. 2,000 to 3,000 people every month? With so many people pouring in at once, can you maintain the situation in Los Angeles? The growth rate of immigrants in Los Angeles really surprised Liang Zhao, which has caught up with the population growth rate of San Francisco at the beginning. With so many immigrants pouring into Los Angeles, Liang Zhao can't help but worry about the local security in Los Angeles. I am in charge of 500 to 600 militiamen in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Police Department also has more than 300 police officers, and there are about 800 brothers from the Loyalty Society, as well as 3 companies that my third brother has dispatched here to guard the refinery. It is not a problem to rely on these people to maintain order in Los Angeles, Deng Wenchen answered confidently and calmly. Los Angeles is not like San Francisco and Sacramento. 90% of the people here are Chinese immigrants, and it is much easier to control them than the foreigners. The original population base of Los Angeles was not large. When the state was established at the end of 1850, the population of Los Angeles was less than 2,000. That year, Sherman's massacre of the village also caused a sharp decline in the local Mexican population. Later, the immigrants in Los Angeles were mostly Chinese. Therefore, until now, the population of Los Angeles is still dominated by Chinese immigrants, accounting for about 90% of the total population. In San Francisco and Sacramento, the proportion of Chinese population is about 40% to 50%. The composition of immigrants is also what makes Los Angeles different from San Francisco and Sacramento. Chinese immigrants are relatively honest. They traveled across the ocean to California just to have enough food to eat and live a relatively decent life. Few of them cause trouble. Therefore, with the same population explosion, the current public security situation in Los Angeles is better than that in San Francisco. Although it is not said that people do not pick up things on the road and do not lock their doors at night, at least it is not as outrageous as when Liang Zhao first arrived in San Francisco, when gold diggers killed, robbed, dueled, and even burned down residents' houses. Of course, this is also related to the fact that Los Angeles has established relatively complete administrative and law enforcement agencies. Hearing what Deng Wenchen said, Liang Zhao also relaxed. He pointed at Lionel, James and others and said, "These are big capitalists from Europe. They are very interested in our kerosene. Take these distinguished guests to see how our kerosene is produced. If they are satisfied, we can get at least 1 million pounds of investment." 1 million pounds. Deng Wenchen took a breath of cold air. No wonder I heard those foreigners say how good Europe is. They almost praised Europe as the Western paradise. There are not many rich people in America, right? 1 million pounds. How many oil wells can be drilled and how many refineries can be built? Stop talking nonsense and take them to open their eyes, Liang Zhao said. Gentlemen, please follow me. Deng Wenchen straightened his collar and changed to fluent English to say to Lionel and James. While walking through the streets and alleys, James carefully glanced at the price of kerosene in the street shops and the shelves of the shops. The price of kerosene in Los Angeles is shockingly low. The price of kerosene in several stores is generally between 10 cents and 13 cents per liter. And the shelves are full of kerosene, and it seems that there is never a shortage of stock. The cheapest store even sells it at an ultra-low price of 8 cents per liter. Those who come to these stores to buy kerosene are not individual customers, but come to buy with freight wagons. It can be seen that kerosene is abundant in Los Angeles. This is simply a city dedicated to the production of kerosene, James exclaimed. He originally thought that Liang Zhao was just going to take them to visit a factory, but he didn't expect Liang Zhao to take him to visit a city directly. Perhaps the kerosene production that Liang Zhao provided to August was still conservative. In fact, it is true that the California kerosene industry only appeared in Los Angeles last year, that is, at the end of March 1852. When Liang Zhao discussed the kerosene business with August and Hills in the Chinese tea house in the Crystal Palace, the data he provided to August was the data of 1852. The annual production of kerosene in Los Angeles in 1852 was more than 8 million liters. To be more precise, it was the production of less than 9 months. In the future, the kerosene produced in this city will illuminate the nights of countless cities, allowing more cities to become cities that never sleep like Paris and London, Liang Zhao said confidently. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Bustling Los Angeles. Lionel and James did not have too much doubt about Liang Zhao's bold words. What they are visiting now is not a kerosene factory, but a city that produces kerosene, a city that produces kerosene with all its strength. This street full of kerosene shops is more like the kerosene wholesale area of Los Angeles than a kerosene shop street. After crossing the street, everyone came to the city center of Los Angeles. This is the place with the largest flow of people in the whole Los Angeles, and it is also the place with the most shops of all kinds. Almost every store has a very considerable flow of customers, but the store with the most customers is undoubtedly the General Machinery Company's store. Why are there so many customers in these machinery shops? They seem to specialize in selling steam engines. James pointed to the machinery shops that lined up across the street and asked. The steam engine advertisements placed at the door of these machinery shops told James that this shop was a shop that specializes in selling steam engines. Crude oil is buried tens of meters or even hundreds of meters underground. If you want to extract crude oil from underground, you need to use a steam engine to drive a water pump to pump up the crude oil, Liang Zhao explained. The development of Los Angeles chemical industry has also made the steam engine manufacturers in San Francisco and Sacramento rich. Last November, all kinds of steam engines in General Machinery's inventory were sold out. Not only the steam engines produced by General Machinery, but also the steam engines produced by other steam engine manufacturers were all sold out. The entire California steam engine market is currently in a state of supply exceeding demand. What is dramatic is that some steam engine manufacturers that were on the verge of bankruptcy have also been revived due to the huge orders from Los Angeles Oil Company. After all, many Los Angeles oil producers now have to solve the problem of whether there are steam engines, rather than the quality of steam engines. The high-quality steam engines produced by General Machinery have people to buy them, and the steam engines produced by unknown small workshops do not have to worry about sales. Some people even saw the business opportunity and went to the eastern United States to buy steam engines, and then ship them to Los Angeles for sale. To be precise, these people are here to reserve steam engines, Deng Wenchen added. Now you can't buy ready-made steam engines in California. James nodded with understanding. It seems that the oil industry in Los Angeles is indeed developing very well to be able to consume all the steam engines in the state. Is that a bank? Leonard guessed, pointing to the Bank of America next to the square. If I guess correctly, this is a local bank providing loan services to local people. The queue in front of the Bank of America was even more exaggerated, almost circling the entire square. There were also many people waiting to handle business at the Boston Bank next to the Bank of America, and the long queue at the door also circled half of the square. Indeed, Liang Zhao explained, this is my bank, and it is also the largest bank in California. Many immigrants who come to Los Angeles are penniless, but oil mining requires a startup capital. As you can see, not only food, clothing, housing and transportation require money, But also steam engines require money, and of course, land purchases require money. The petrochemical industry in Los Angeles has also driven other local industries in California, among which the biggest beneficiaries are California's banking and machinery industries. This is also a phenomenon that Liang Zhao is happy to see. Unlike San Francisco and Sacramento, which became rich directly through gold mining, Los Angeles became rich through industrial value creation. As for whether these immigrants who have nothing can get their loans back in the future, Liang Zhao is more optimistic. He believed that with the current development trend of chemical industry in California, most of the loaned money could be recovered with interest. Does land in Los Angeles also need money? August was the person who knew America best among the group. He was very surprised that the land in Los Angeles needed to be purchased. Most of the land in the western United States is not unowned land. Whoever develops it owns it. Yes, before I came to Los Angeles in 1851, most of the land here was indeed unowned land, Liang Zhao said calmly, but now, most of the land in Los Angeles is mine. Unlike the purchase of land in Sacramento and Manhattan, New York, Liang Zhao spent real money to buy the land in Sacramento and Manhattan. The land in Los Angeles was directly bought by Liang Zhao, almost at no cost. It was a deal with no capital and huge profits. 1851. Lionel and others were greatly surprised by this. Could it be that this kid had the ability to predict the future? He had set his eyes on the land here 2 years ago. Lionel had not paid much attention to the land of the New World before. In fact, the entire Rothschild family was not optimistic about the prospects of the New World, and the investment was limited. Unexpectedly, in the New World region of this New World, there is a place like California where gold is everywhere. It seems that their family needs to make a new assessment of the business prospects of the American continent, especially the North American continent. Such a vibrant and business-filled place, I now want to open a branch in California, Lionel sighed. Deng Wenchen took Lionel, James and others to a place where the oil wells were relatively uniform, and it was obviously a planned oil mining area. Deng Wenchen pointed to the oil mining area in front of him and introduced it to everyone. Gentlemen, this is the oil mining area directly under our Standard Oil Group, and it is also the largest oil mining area in Los Angeles, with a total of 370 oil wells. Liang Zhao did not classify the oil industry into the American group, but directly established a new group company. With the broad business prospects and huge profits of the petrochemical industry, there is a chance to grow independently into a behemoth. Liang Zhao was not surprised that Standard Oil's capital scale would exceed that of the American group in the future. Rockefeller, the richest man in American history, relied on the petrochemical industry to monopolize more than 80% of the kerosene supply in North America, allowing the dollars of thousands of ordinary American families to flow into his pockets. Lionel and others looked at the black and viscous liquid extracted from the ground with curiosity, and they were amazed. Transparent kerosene is extracted from these black liquids? How did you find it? This is a trade secret. I can only tell you that there are very good chemists in California. They are good at creation and good at turning waste into treasure. Liang Zhao pretended to be mysterious. Lionel knew that this was Liang Zhao's trade secret. How to extract kerosene from crude oil. Liang Zhao would definitely not tell him, so he stopped asking. How much crude oil can such a well produce every day? James asked about the output of crude oil. I want the oil workers to help me answer this question more convincingly, as he said. Liang Zhao asked the oil workers who were working at the pump. These oil workers were immigrants who had just arrived in Los Angeles. Their English was very poor. Since Los Angeles was a city dominated by Chinese, the demand for English was not very high. Therefore, even though they were all immigrants born in 1850, the English level of the old Chinese immigrants in Los Angeles was worse than that of the old Chinese immigrants in San Francisco and Sacramento. For Chinese immigrants in San Francisco or Sacramento, if they did not know English, their lives would be more or less affected. However, for Chinese immigrants in Los Angeles, language problems were never a problem. On the contrary, white immigrants in Los Angeles were more troubled by language problems, because the kerosene merchants in Los Angeles were basically Chinese merchants. If they wanted to buy kerosene from Chinese merchants, they had to learn Chinese or related dialects. After all, there were only a few Chinese merchants who knew English when they were in China, like the Guangzhou merchants. After these oil workers talked and gestured for a long time, James and others realized that the average daily output of an oil well here was 40 to 50 barrels. James checked the barrels loaded with oil, and it was clearly marked on the barrels that the capacity of each barrel was 150 liters. This means that each oil well here can produce about 6 or 7 tons of crude oil every day. Chapter 339, which is better, this place or the Qing dynasty? An oil well produces about 6 to 7 tons of crude oil per day, and the annual output is at least 2,000 tons. That is to say, the oil wells directly under the Standard Oil Group alone can produce at least 740,000 tons of crude oil per year. This is just the oil field directly under the Standard Oil Group. Counting the oil fields and wells of other individual investors, it is possible that the annual crude oil output in Los Angeles will exceed 1.5 million tons this year. Such a huge crude oil output makes James and others excited. No wonder Liang Zhao dared to boast to them that the output of kerosene in Los Angeles will be increased to 50 million liters within 2 years. With such a huge crude oil output support, let alone 50 million liters of annual output, James and others are willing to believe in 50 million gallons of annual output. 1 gallon of US system is about 3.78 liters, and 1 gallon of British system is about 4.54 liters. August was right. This young American rich man is indeed a more conservative person. How much do you earn per month in US dollars? Liang Zhao asked about the monthly income of oil workers. Those of us who work hard can earn about $35 a month. The oil worker answered Liang Zhao's question with a smile while scraping the wax stains on the pumping rod and putting them into a small wooden bucket beside him. Another oil worker pointed to a mechanic who was repairing a steam engine and said, "We who work hard don't earn much. Those who know the machines can earn at least $50 a month, and the master can earn more. I heard that our master at Standard Oil can easily earn $100 a month. I have sent my son to the mechanical school in the Holy City to learn skills from the masters in the school. When he graduates from the school, he will work as a mechanic at Standard Oil and tinker with these machines. Compared with the Qing dynasty, this is heaven. My son told me that the school not only does not charge tuition, but also provides meals. In the Qing dynasty, you may not be able to eat eggs and meat during the new year, but you can have at least one meal every day at school. I never dared to dream of such a life before. With an income of $35 a month, this income is on par with industrial workers in San Francisco and Sacramento, and 3 times the per capita income in New York City. In the eastern region, this income is half a step into the threshold of the middle class. You should know that Los Angeles was the place with the lowest income and the most hated place in California. The first choice of immigrants was San Francisco and Sacramento, and at the very least, they would go to Nevada. Few people would choose to settle down in Los Angeles without any advantageous industries. Looking at the whole of America, only industrial workers in California can have such high wages. This is why, in addition to immigrants from the Qing dynasty, there are also industrial workers in the eastern United States and even in Europe running to California. Is it better here or the Qing dynasty? Liang Zhao continued to ask these oil workers. Of course it's better here, the oil workers said without hesitation. When I was in the Qing dynasty, my family of 7 or 8 people depended on the harvest from 4 or 5 acres of land. Once the wind was not good or the rain was not good, the whole family would go hungry. As for saving money, we dared not even hope to do so. Here, I can save at least $20 every month by living frugally. Now I am thinking about taking my relatives from my hometown to come over so that the whole family can have someone to take care of here, so as not to have to worry about the next meal in the Qing dynasty. Compared to the Qing dynasty, this place is the paradise in the books. As long as you are not a lazy person, you will not starve to death. Another oil worker echoed. I am from Zhangzi and only arrived in Los Angeles 2 months ago. Last year, when Zhangzi was in turmoil, the Tycoon rebellion came and took away all our family's stored food and weapons. I heard that they were put into some holy treasury. Fortunately, this group of Tycoon rebellion was kind-hearted. The Tycoon commander felt sorry for me and left me 5 dao of rice as food. It was with this 5 dao of rice that I took my whole family over mountains and rivers, fled to Fujian, and then took a boat to Los Angeles. You are very lucky to have met the Tycoon rebels who still have consciences. I heard that some Tycoon rebels even put women into the treasury. Another oil worker sighed. I thought I could live a peaceful life for a few days after the Tycoon rebels left, but the Zhangjiang rebels came right after the Tycoon rebels left. These Zhangjiang rebels are even worse than the Tycoon rebels. They not only robbed people, but also forced civilians to work for them and raped women. If they refused, they would kill people and burn houses. Bah! Damn Zhangjiang rebels, damn Zhang the barber, What a shit is Zhang rebel, they are just bandits in the guise of Zhang rebels, another oil worker said. I was originally a small businessman and wanted to sell some goods in Ganzhou. Zhang the barber sent people to set up checkpoints at the entrance to collect lian. They said they were collecting lian, but in fact they were robbing people. They robbed all my goods. Liang Zhao was quite surprised that there were so many Zhangzi immigrants in Los Angeles. Due to the unstable situation in the mainland, Liang Zhao did not have any local officials familiar with the mainland. Before that, he had basically immigrated from Guangdong, Fujian and Zhejiang. The recent immigrants are all immigrants who have suffered from the war. There are not only those from Zhuangzi, but also from Hubei, Anhui and Zhejiang, Deng Wenchen added. How are the workers of other oil companies paid? Liang Zhao nodded and asked Deng Wenchen. It's lower than our Standard Oil Group. Our Standard Oil Group has the best treatment. Deng Wenchen thought for a while and said, but it's not much lower. $30 is always enough. We won't starve to death. What are these wax stains? While Liang Zhao was talking, James stared at the wax stains in the barrel and asked. His intuition told him that these wax stains were not waste. Since this black liquid called petroleum can be refined into kerosene, it is naturally possible to refine other valuable things. This is the dirt condensed on the pumping rod by crude oil. It must be removed in time, otherwise it will cause mechanical failure. Deng Wenchen was quite smart and explained seriously. James was skeptical about Deng Wenchen's explanation. After visiting the oil field, James and others said they would go to the refinery now. Deng Wenchen led everyone to the heavily guarded refinery, which was also a factory that produced kerosene. James and others were not surprised that there were so many soldiers guarding the refinery. If he had discovered such a business opportunity, he would have sent heavy troops to guard the factory to prevent competitors from stealing his production secrets. After entering the gate painted with a sign prohibiting fireworks, it was the interior of the refinery. The black viscous liquid you saw in the oil field just now is crude oil, which is a semi-finished product. Crude oil is refined into kerosene in the factory here, Deng Wenchen introduced to everyone. At this stage, the refining technology is very backward. Kerosene is the most economically valuable product that Liang Zhao can extract from crude oil through distillation. In addition, some lubricating oil, oil wax and asphalt can be refined, but the market prospects of these products at this stage are not as broad as kerosene. Deng Wenchen deliberately took James and others to skip the distillation and secondary distillation of production and came to the end of the production line. Workers were seen loading the finished kerosene into empty barrels, and then pushing the barrels filled with kerosene into the warehouse. James noticed that a lot of unknown liquids similar to kerosene were discharged as waste. He pointed at these liquid wastes and asked curiously, why aren't these liquids packaged in barrels? The waste James was referring to was waste liquids containing gasoline or diesel. Liang Zhao wanted to use these things, but there were no internal combustion engines now, so these things were useless and could only be discharged as waste. Moreover, the internal combustion engine, a cross-era product, was not something that skilled craftsmen in California could tinker with in a short period of time. These are useless wastes, Liang Zhao replied. Can they be burned? James continued to ask. Yes, crude oil can be burned, Liang Zhao replied. Since they can be burned, why not package them and sell them as inferior kerosene? James' eyes lit up. The combustion of kerosene is controllable and safe, while the combustion of these waste liquids is uncontrollable. Do you smell their smell? Liang Zhao asked back. Yes, it's a smell I've never smelled before, James replied. The gas produced by these waste liquids will explode as long as there is a little spark, sending us all to the sky. Do you want to sell this flammable and explosive liquid as kerosene? Liang Zhao asked back. James was speechless. He didn't expect that this waste liquid was so dangerous. Liang Zhao's answer also cut off his idea of reusing this waste liquid. As a brand new product, kerosene is most afraid of being boycotted due to safety accidents. Liang Zhao is not stupid enough to sell these waste liquids as kerosene. Once an accident occurs, it will not only affect his reputation, but also the practitioners of the whaling industry will use this incident to hype and attack the boycott of kerosene. After leaving the factory, Liang Zhao breathed in the relatively fresh air and felt refreshed. You have visited the oil field and the refinery. I think you should have nothing to worry about in our cooperation. You should also know now that I am not bragging to you. Liang Zhao went straight to the point. To be honest, the kerosene plant in Los Angeles needs to be expanded to increase production capacity. I have other projects to do, and the funds that can be transferred to the refinery are limited. I hope to get a loan from Rothschild Bank to expand the kerosene plant. The more kerosene Los Angeles produces, the more profit you will get. I think you understand this principle better than me. There are many oil companies in Los Angeles that can extract crude oil, but the only chemical company that can refine crude oil into kerosene is Liang Zhao Standard Oil. The current situation of the chemical industry in Los Angeles is that the refining capacity cannot keep up with the mining capacity, and the crude oil in the warehouses of many oil companies has even exploded. After a period of discussion, Lionel and James reached a consensus that Liang Zhao is a very high-quality business partner, and he has enough ability to repay their loans. At the same time, they also feel that Armstrong's arsenal was not blown up in vain. This explosion brought them a very reliable business partner, which is very worthwhile. As long as you agree to some of our small requests, the Rothschild family is willing to provide you with a low-interest loan of £1 million. After saying this, Lionel did not forget to emphasize, this is the largest loan that the Rothschild family bank has ever provided to private individuals since its establishment. Chapter 340 Win-Win. What are the conditions? Liang Zhao asked. It would be abnormal for the Rothschilds not to make demands for such a huge loan. However, Liang Zhao is not at a disadvantage in the cooperation with the Rothschilds. After all, he is the only one in the world who can provide kerosene, a good quality and cheap commodity. As long as Lionel and James are not stupid, they will not make excessive demands and push Liang Zhao to their competitors, such as the Barings. It is true that Hills is a fool, but it does not mean that all members of the Barings are fools. After the Barings react, they will definitely seek to cooperate with Liang Zhao and get kerosene from Liang Zhao. The Barings started much earlier than the Rothschilds, and their influence in the UK, especially in the British political circles, is greater than that of the Rothschilds. Lionel will definitely not be able to prevent the Barings from cooperating with Liang Zhao in the future. Lionel still has a very clear understanding of this. However, although it is impossible to organize the Barings to cooperate with Liang Zhao and get a share of the kerosene trade, before the Barings contact Liang Zhao, Lionel was still able to let the Rothschild family take the lead in reaching some agreements with Liang Zhao to ensure that the Rothschild family gained an advantageous position in the kerosene trade. Regarding the 5 requests you made to August last time, I will do my best to meet you. Almost every powerful country in Europe has our friends. As long as you go to Europe, we will introduce you to some powerful friends, even members of the royal families of various countries. As for supporting President Fillmore's re-election, His Excellency the President has now been successfully re-elected, and I think you should have no worries now. You want to open up the European market with us, and we welcome it. Of course, we can also transfer the new cannons and drawings you want to you right now, James said very clearly. What you need to do is to give priority to our high-quality partner in providing kerosene, and we want to get kerosene from you at the most affordable price. That is to say, in the future, if your other partners want to get goods from you, the price cannot be lower than the price you give us. This is our only condition. If you can agree to this condition, we can sit down and continue to discuss our cooperation happily. Lionel's request was not excessive. Liang Zhao agreed after a little thought. Of course, we are partners. I promise you that the Rothschild family will get kerosene from Standard Oil Group at the most favorable price, then we will have a happy cooperation. Lionel, who always thinks highly of himself, took off his gloves and shook hands with Liang Zhao in a cordial and friendly manner. After leaving the factory, Liang Zhao invited Lionel and others to dine at a restaurant in Los Angeles. There were no high-end restaurants in Los Angeles. After all, before the development of the chemical industry, the population of Los Angeles was less than 10,000, and the number of wealthy people was even smaller. There was no demand for high-end restaurants. But with the development of the chemical industry, a group of wealthy businessmen poured into Los Angeles and the rise of the middle class, Los Angeles became rich almost overnight. High-end restaurants and luxury stores have also sprung up in Los Angeles to meet the needs of the emerging class in Los Angeles. The most high-end restaurant in Los Angeles is located near the Los Angeles Plaza, where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. This is the most crowded place in Los Angeles. This restaurant is called Guangli Restaurant. It is opened by a Chinese-French couple and can provide authentic French and Cantonese cuisine. The male owner of the restaurant is a branch of Guangli, one of the 13 Hongs in Guangzhou, and the hostess is a poor little noble in Normandy, France. Since Liang Zhao is going to treat guests, Deng Wenchen naturally brought Liang Zhao to the most prestigious restaurant in Los Angeles. Seeing that Mayor Deng Wenchen was leading the way in front with a respectful attitude, the male owner of the restaurant, Lu Shen, did not dare to neglect it and personally brought his wife to entertain these distinguished guests. Who is this distinguished guest? Lu Shen couldn't help his curiosity and asked Deng Wenchen carefully. In Los Angeles, only others can nod and bow to Deng Wenchen. This is the first time Lu Shen has seen Deng Wenchen nod and bow to others. This is my cousin, Deng Wenchen answered proudly. Your cousin? Lu Shen quickly reacted, and he slapped his forehead. Your cousin, isn't that General Liang? Go and do your work, you are very lucky today. The general wants to receive guests here, and you must serve these gentlemen well. The general is negotiating a big deal of several million pounds with them, Deng Wenchen said. Lu Shen nodded in agreement and led the group to the private room on the third floor. Then he prepared meals for these guests as quickly as possible, including various Chinese and French meals. I didn't expect to eat such authentic French food in such a remote place. James was very satisfied with the arranged meals. It seems that the development of California has far exceeded his expectations. James is now even considering leaving his capable man August in California to develop the market here. Perhaps there are more businesses to do here than just kerosene. Lionel's mind was still on kerosene. Mr. Liang, how many liters of kerosene can be refined from each ton of crude oil? And at what price will you sell the kerosene to us? Output and profit were the issues that Lionel was most concerned about. According to the technology we have mastered, we can refine about 25 liters of kerosene from each ton of crude oil. However, the specific amount of kerosene that can be refined depends on the quality of the crude oil. Good quality crude oil can refine more than 30 liters of kerosene per ton, and poor quality crude oil may only refine more than 10 liters of kerosene per ton. Liang Zhao thought for a while and said, as for the price I give you, the top kerosene is 12 cents per liter, the medium kerosene is 10 cents per liter, and the low-quality kerosene is 8 cents per liter. The average cost of kerosene produced in Los Angeles is currently between 4 and 5 cents per liter. If it is sold to the Rothschild family at this price, he will still have at least 100% profit. Although this profit is very high, it is definitely not comparable to the profit in the United States. The storage and transportation cost of transporting kerosene from Los Angeles to New York is about 10 cents, while in the Crystal Palace Mall, the price of kerosene of different qualities is between 20 and 30 cents per liter, and the profit can be seen. However, since the cooperation with the Rothschild family to open up the European market, the profit of kerosene in the European market will definitely not be so high, and it is necessary to give some to the Rothschild family. What's more, the main purpose of Liang Zhao's cooperation with the Rothschild family is to use Rothschild's resources and connections to build his own sales network in Europe, and then sell other products. After all, he now has more than just kerosene. This is not much different from the price that those retail investors buy goods at kerosene stores. Mr. Liang, your purchase price lacks the sincerity of cooperation. Lionel was not satisfied with Liang Zhao's offer. Of course, he was not angry. When talking about business, they could still bargain with each other. But those retail investors cannot guarantee that they can always get the goods, and you don't have such troubles. The kerosene in Los Angeles will be supplied to the Rothschild family first. Liang Zhao did not intend to give in to this price, and he explained to Lionel. This price is the price you receive after the goods are transported to Europe, including the storage cost and transportation cost in the middle. I am now also the largest shipping company in the United States. These goods can be transported by my fleet in person and delivered to you safely without going through other people's hands. After these kerosene arrives in Europe, you have the final say on what price you want to sell it. My people are only responsible for assisting you in sales and will not interfere with your pricing. The current market price of whale oil is 50 cents per liter, and the prices of other animal fuels and plant fuels are also between 40 cents and 60 cents. In other words, as long as you have a profit margin of more than 300%. I think my price is sincere enough. After hearing that this was the price without transportation to Europe, the expression on Lionel's face gradually relaxed. After some bargaining, the two parties finally signed a cooperation agreement in the restaurant and formally reached a cooperation. Lionel also handed over the 4 new artillery pieces and 2 boxes of technical drawings he brought this time to Liang Zhao. After the meal, after drinking a little wine with Lionel and others, Liang Zhao took out his pocket watch to check the time. But the pointer on the pocket watch did not move at all. Liang Zhao even suspected that he had hallucinations because he drank too much. He rubbed his eyes and looked carefully. The pointer on the pocket watch was still motionless. Obviously, there was something wrong with his pocket watch. Wenshun, what time is it now? Liang Zhao asked Deng Wenshun the current time. 10 o'clock and 5 words in the evening. It's getting late. Otherwise, I will stay in Los Angeles for one night. Deng Wenshun took out his pocket watch and looked at it and replied. Z is a time measurement unit in most places in Guangdong and Fujian. The Chinese immigrants in California are mainly from Fujian and Guangdong. This unit of measurement with regional characteristics has also been brought to California. One word represents the minute hand on the clock jumping from one number to another, which is 5 minutes 10 o'clock and 5 words is 10:25. His housekeeper, his third uncle Liang Zhao, sent him a telegram saying that Guangdong Navy Admiral Hong Mingxiang and his fifth uncle Liang Zhao had been waiting for him in San Francisco for many days. The two came to see him, mostly to purchase arms and the affairs of the Guangdong brave. There were still many things waiting for him to deal with in San Francisco. Liang Zhao did not plan to stay in Los Angeles, but to go to the Los Angeles train station. A year ago, Los Angeles and San Francisco had already been connected by train, and it was also very convenient and fast to return to San Francisco from Los Angeles. If we set off now, we can arrive in San Francisco around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. No, I have to go back to Jinshan. Liang Zhao put on his coat and asked about the next itinerary of Lionel, James and others. Are you going to rest in Los Angeles and return to Europe, or do you have other plans? The development of California is beyond our expectations. We are very interested in California now and plan to continue to investigate California for a while, James and Lionel replied after discussing for a while. Chapter 341 Rural California. The trip to Los Angeles made Lionel, James and others more interested in California. Before coming to California, August reported to them about the situation in California, but the focus of August's report was on San Francisco and Sacramento, two big cities that rose due to the gold rush. As for Los Angeles, there was really nothing worth reporting except the massacre in 1850, so August did not report the situation in Los Angeles to James and Lionel. Before coming to Los Angeles, August thought that Liang Zhao discovered the oil fields in San Francisco or Sacramento, as well as in Nevada, and never thought that Liang Zhao would discover the oil fields in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, which was developed later than San Francisco and Sacramento, has developed so well, so with the blessing of the gold industry, are San Francisco and Sacramento, which have an earlier development history, developing better? Lionel and others are full of curiosity about San Francisco and Sacramento. After 6 o'clock, the passenger train between Los Angeles and San Francisco has stopped running. However, the suspension of passenger trains did not prevent Liang Zhao from taking the train back to San Francisco. He was the owner of the entire California Railway Company, and calling a train was just a matter of words. Although the passenger trains between Los Angeles and San Francisco had been suspended, it did not mean that the trains between the two places had fallen into a state of rest due to the arrival of night. The Los Angeles train station was still very busy at night. Freight trains between the two places blew loud whistles and spewed billowing black smoke to and from Los Angeles and San Francisco. Kerosene, asphalt and other petrochemical products in Los Angeles were transported to San Francisco, Sacramento, Carson, Reno and other settlements along the way through California's developed railway transportation network. Machinery, tools, food, vegetables, fruits, wood, cloth, luxury goods, and other commodities from San Francisco and Sacramento were also imported into Los Angeles through the developed railway network. Los Angeles was able to rise rapidly in just 1 year, and the railway played an indispensable role. Light is a luxury for the night. Before I came to Los Angeles, I thought only wealthy cities like London and Paris could afford to light up all the street lights at night. While waiting for the train at the train station, James sighed as he looked at the street lights that illuminated the Los Angeles train station as bright as day. The spacing between street lights in Los Angeles is even smaller than that of the street lights on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. As long as the production of kerosene increases, there will be more and more cities that never sleep in the future. Light at night will no longer be a luxury for humans. This is the power of civilization and the power of industry, Liang Zhao said, staring down at the asphalt platform under his feet. He is now in the fastest growing and most changing era in human history. The changes in humans over the past 1,000 years are not as great as those in the past 100 years. If a person living in 1800 traveled to 1899, he would definitely wonder if he had arrived in a different world, because there were too many new things in 1899 that people in 1800 had never seen. After a while, Liang Zhao's private train slowly drove into the platform. There is no such thing as usurpation in America. He has a private train that is more luxurious than Fillmore's. Everyone boarded the train that was illuminated by kerosene lamps. Inside the train, sofas, beds, desks, bookshelves, cabinets, and dining tables are all available. Even if you don't get off the train, you can still live a very comfortable life on the train. Your train is just like a palace. Even though he is picky about his personal life and pursues quality, Lionel couldn't help but admire it after boarding the train. The train of this American gold tycoon, who started with gold, did not use any gold to decorate his train, but the wealth of the owner of the train can be felt everywhere on the train, which is luxurious and not vulgar. Please go ahead, if you want to have a midnight snack or a little wine, just pull the bell at your seat and a special attendant will serve you. Liang Zhao pointed to the copper bell hanging on the sofa and said, "This copper bell extends from the private rest car to the crew car and the kitchen. As long as it is pulled, the copper bell at the kitchen end will ring." After saying this, Liang Zhao went to his lounge and fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, it was already 8 o'clock in the morning. The train was bathed in the morning sun and running in the vast Central Valley. Liang Zhao got out of bed and drank a sip of water, enjoying the scenery along the way. Riding a train and enjoying the scenery along the way is also a pleasant and comfortable enjoyment. At first, the Central Valley where the train passed was relatively desolate, with few people and buildings. Only occasionally could you see Indians staring at the train in fear. This scene was also within Liang Zhao's expectations. The Central Valley covers an area of nearly 50,000 square kilometers, and the current population of California is less than 1 million. It is still a state of vast land and sparse population, and the population density is still very small. The Central Valley still has great development potential. However, as it gets closer to San Francisco, the farms and villages along the way are gradually increasing. The rural areas in California are basically distributed along the railway line. Every time the railway is built to a new place, rural areas of different sizes are often formed along the way. Outside the train window, local farmers and their hired workers rode horses and drove carriages to work in wheat and rice fields. In addition to farmland, Liang Zhao also saw many vineyards, orchards and vegetable fields along the way. Orchards and vegetable fields of such a large area are obviously not planted by local farmers for their own consumption, but are commercially cultivated. Except for a small number of vegetables and fruits that are kept for their own consumption, most of them are taken to the city for sale. Every village has a train station, and every train station has farmers waiting at the train station with agricultural products. They are farmers who are ready to take agricultural products to the city for sale. Due to the vast land and sparse population in California, the per capita arable land area is originally large, and coupled with the state government's support policy for agriculture, California basically has no self-employed farmers. These people who look like farmers, whether they are Chinese, Mexican or other ethnic groups, are essentially no longer completely farmers. It may be more appropriate to call them farmers. As for the traditional land annexation problem of the Qing dynasty, Liang Zhao is not worried about this happening in California. At present, there are still a lot of wasteland and swamps in California waiting to be developed. The cost and risk of developing new land are lower than directly annexing other people's land. Moreover, California farmers are not farmers in the Qing dynasty, and they are not lambs to be slaughtered. Allowing citizens to own firearms is a provision written into the Constitution of the United States. As a part of the United States, California should naturally follow the Constitution of the United States. In other words, large and small farmers in California all hold old firearms. If large farmers insist on annexing the land of small farmers, they will not only face legal risks, but also face life-threatening dangers. After all, everyone is equal in front of peanuts. Even rabbits will bite people when they are forced into a corner, let alone people with guns. The reason why land annexation occurs is that in agricultural production, land is the most important means of production. In California's agricultural production, the most important means of production is not land, but people. When people become more important means of production than land in agricultural production, land annexation will exist in another form. What the exploiting class should consider is not how to occupy more land, but how to occupy more important means of production than land, that is, people. The typical representative of this model of land annexation is the serfdom that is currently prevalent in the Russian Empire. Russia, with its vast land and sparse population, does not lack land, so the Russian landlords do not want to annex the farmers' land, but to find ways to turn the self-cultivating farmers into their slaves, so that they and their descendants can become their slaves and serve them for generations. Of course, the second brother does not laugh at the eldest brother in the slave states in the southern United States. Black slaves are more important means of production than land. In the mid-19th century, the United States was the power with the second largest number of slaves after the Russian Empire. In Virginia, a black slave can be exchanged for at least 30 acres of cultivated land. In Texas, where the population density is even lower, a black slave can be exchanged for even more land. Liang Zhao must prevent, and should prevent, the emergence of serfs in California, so that California will not develop in the direction of the southern slave states. While thinking, suddenly a dark black shadow flashed past a window. Black people? Black slaves? Liang Zhao's heart skipped a beat. He opened the window, stuck his head out and looked back. Sure enough, he saw a black man mixed in with a group of people. The appearance of black people in California, especially at this time, is not a good sign. Liang Zhao frowned. He did not want the so-called abolitionists and slaveholders to appear in California. California had no historical burden of slavery and there was no need to get involved. Being involved in the political whirlpool of slavery and abolition would do no good except to hinder the development of California. The train was getting closer and closer to San Francisco, and the villages on both sides of the track were getting bigger and bigger. The cries of cattle and sheep penetrated the roar of the steam engine and reached Liang Zhao's ears. Liang Zhao looked in the direction of the sound. It was the sound made by the livestock in the ranch. But now he had no intention of appreciating the beautiful scenery around him. When he saw a black man along the way, it meant that there was already a group of black people in California. This is a very thorny problem for now and even in the future. Chapter 342 Hot Potato. The black issue is a thorn in Liang Zhao's side. After returning to Tingtao Garden, he immediately sent a telegram to ask Governor Robinson, San Francisco Mayor Strauss, and Sacramento Mayor Sutter to come to Tingtao Garden for a meeting. Thank God, you raised $5 million in loans for the state government on Wall Street this time. With your $5 million, I think California can easily survive this year, Strauss said very happily. His joy was beyond words. With this $5 million, the California government is enough to make up for this year's fiscal deficit, and perhaps even have some surplus. This is not what we are going to discuss today. Liang Zhao's face was very gloomy. Liang Zhao's gloomy expression made Strauss feel chilled. He had served Liang Zhao for so long, but he had never seen such an expression on Liang Zhao's face. It seemed that the matter Liang Zhao was going to discuss today was very serious. Strauss really couldn't figure out what could have made Liang Zhao so angry. Robinson and Sutter were also puzzled. During my absence, how many fugitive slaves from southern slave states entered California? How did they enter California? Liang Zhao asked directly, his cold eyes swept over everyone present. It turned out to be this matter, and everyone suddenly realized it. All free states have precedents of accepting black fugitive slaves. California, as a free state, especially a free state with a fast-growing economy, should set an example in this matter, Robinson answered irrelevantly. Robinson's answer made Liang Zhao more annoyed, and he suddenly raised his voice while knocking on the table. Answer my question directly. Robinson. Do you know what consequences will come to us if you accept these blacks? Why didn't you tell me in advance before accepting these blacks? Liang Zhao was not only angry about these California politicians taking the initiative to rashly accept black fugitive slaves, but also about rashly accepting black fugitive slaves without telling him in advance, which was what Liang Zhao could not accept even more. This Robinson, it seems, has been the governor for a long time and has become arrogant. Do you really think that California has achieved rapid economic development under the wise leadership of him as the governor? It's time to give Robinson a beating. Liang Zhao unceremoniously reprimanded Robinson in front of Strauss and Sutter. In other states, it is unimaginable for the deputy governor to reprimand a governor. But it is different in California. California can do without Robinson, but it cannot do without Liang Zhao. Strauss and Sutter both understand this. Robinson is not a governor with very bad ability, but compared with Liang Zhao, Robinson's ability and influence pale in comparison. Take the $5 million loan as an example. Liang Zhao can borrow $5 million from Wall Street, but Robinson can't borrow $5 million. Faced with Liang Zhao's reprimand, Robinson did not talk back. With Liang Zhao's current influence in California, it is just a matter of words to make him step down. Although Robinson was holding his breath, he still chose to endure. He is the first governor of California, and he wants to spend this term in a complete and decent manner. This is his future political capital, and he does not want to give up this precious political capital. I took these fugitives in because I felt sorry for them. As for how many black people there are in California, there are 650 registered. And there are still some fugitives who have not been included in the statistics. After Liang Zhao finished scolding, Robinson answered truthfully. What a fool. You took in black slaves, and your saintly heart was satisfied. Those black slaves would worship you as gods, and you would also receive praise from other free states. But have you ever thought about what this would bring to California? Robinson, you are too selfish, Liang Zhao said with great sorrow. We can maintain good relations with both free states and slave states, and stay out of the abolition and slavery dispute. At this sensitive time, accepting black slaves is a political issue. If you accept these black slaves, you must make your position clear to both the North and the South, and there is no room for maneuver. If you accept these black slaves, you must give them an identity, right? If these black slaves are still slaves in California, the free states will definitely not like you, and think that California is no different from the slave states. Not only will the free states dislike you, but the slave states will also hold a grudge against California. After all, these black slaves are escaped from slave states and are the property of the slave owners in Dixie. This is no different from directly robbing them of their money. Giving these black slaves the status of freemen can win the favor of the free states, but the slave states will hate you even more. At present, black escaped slaves are a hot potato for California, and the stupid Robinson took over this hot potato. Sir, how do you plan to deal with this problem? Strauss asked Liang Zhao for his opinion. Since the incident has already happened, the top priority is to find a way to solve this problem. Sartre's temperament is relatively straightforward, and he doesn't have so many twists and turns. He didn't care much about accepting black escaped slaves. After Liang Zhao said this, he also realized the seriousness of the matter. Slave states are also important trading partners of California. The cotton and cotton yarn and cotton textile factories come from slave states, the sugarcane and sugarcane factories comes from southern states, and even the tobacco industry and cigarette factories comes from southern states. If the slave states Lord Dixie gets angry and cuts off trade with California, these industries will certainly be affected. The number of people employed in California who make a living from these industries and related industries is at least hundreds of thousands. If we count the products exported by California to slave states, such as steam engines, tools, cotton clothes, cloth, steel and other products, the losses will be even greater. It is really not worth offending slave states for some black fugitives. Do slave states know that we accept black fugitives? Liang Zhao asked. Yes, Strauss replied. What is their reaction? Liang Zhao continued to ask. The reactions are different. Some slave states don't take it too seriously, but some slave states have stronger reactions. For example, Texas, because most of the fugitives in California come from Texas, Texas requires us to return these properties that belong to them, Strauss replied. In my name and in the name of Governor Robinson, I will send a telegram to all states. California follows the spirit of the American Constitution and recognizes the superiority of the free system. At the same time, California also recognizes the legitimacy of slavery and respects the different customs and habits of each state. Liang Zhao thought for a while and said. Then Liang Zhao asked Hu Jinshan to go to the telegraph room and apologize to the governor of Texas, Bell, in his personal name, and said that all escaped slaves from California and Texas would be repatriated to Texas at their own expense. After doing this, Liang Zhao called Pinkerton. Pinkerton, it's time for you to show your business ability. Wait for the boss's instructions, Pinkerton said eagerly. Issue a notice to all parts of California, asking all blacks to register their identities at the police station in San Francisco. After these people arrive at a police station, they will be detained first. Liang Zhao thought for a while and said. As for the remaining fish that slip through the net, take them all to the police station one by one, and no one can be left behind. I don't want to see black people on the streets of California in a month. Do you understand? I understand, I know what to do, Pinkerton replied. Chapter 343 Big Customer. Neutrality is California's attitude towards the issue of slavery and abolition for a long time in the future. There is no doubt that democracy is the general trend of the future. This is also the consensus of the earliest batch of California immigrants at the beginning of California's establishment. However, for the sake of formal and moral democracy and freedom, accepting black fugitives and therefore venting anger on the southern slave states is not on the current interests of California. After the telegram was sent, Liang Zhao ordered the censorship of newspapers and periodicals in California, and issued a ban on the publication of any articles about slavery and abolition to newspapers of all sizes in California, and instructed the state government to strengthen the censorship of the news. Although this is not so free in the so-called freedom of speech in the United States. But the so-called freedom is just a cover. In fact, both the North and the South now have their own public opinion positions and means. Each free state and slave state is manipulating the public opinion in the state. For example, Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel that is popular in America, is popular in free states, but it is a banned book in slave states. Free state newspapers basically do not see articles supporting slavery, and slave state newspapers also rarely see articles supporting abolition. Even if there are few alternative articles occasionally, even if the attitude is relatively neutral and the wording is relatively euphemistic, the newspaper that publishes the article will be smashed to pieces by the local fanatical people on the same day. The writer of the article will also face the risk of being exposed in the wilderness. This is the current environment of American public opinion. Abolition or slavery must be maintained. You must choose to support one side and stand on the side. Otherwise, you are a traitor to the South, North, and you will end up being neither inside nor outside. Liang Zhao does not want California to become like this. During the months in New York, Liang Zhao also read hundreds of newspapers in California, all of which were about abolitionists. Since free states and slave states have their own positions, California should also have its own position. The most important thing for California at present is to develop the economy of the state, rather than to engage in meaningless debates around slavery and abolition issues that have nothing to do with it. Now, those abolitionists in the United States who support abolition and stand on the moral high ground to condemn the inhumanity of the southern slave states are no different from those who shouted the slogan of Black Lives Matter in later generations. They are for their own interests, not really concerned about the survival and discrimination of black people. If these abolitionists are really as noble as they claim to be, racial discrimination would not be a cancer that is difficult to remove in American society after more than 170 years. There are about 3 types of people who shout Black Lives Matter in later generations. One is politicians, who can bring them votes and support. The other is businessmen, who can not only win the favor of black people and white leftists, but also bring them tangible economic benefits, or express their position to protect their industries from the riots. The last type is ordinary people who go with the flow and watch the excitement. After all, shouting a few slogans to support black people will not bring them any losses, and can also demonstrate their own justice. If these politicians are asked to introduce substantive policies to gradually eliminate racial discrimination against black people, and wealthy businessmen paid to improve the living conditions of black people, or let black people become neighbors of ordinary white middle-class people, most of them will not accept it. Because the discrimination against black people from the bottom of their hearts cannot be eliminated by shouting a few slogans of support. Actions are often more honest than words. After Liang Zhao sent the telegram, it did not cause much response, because at this time the attention of the free states and the slave states was focused on Kansas, where the struggle between abolitionists and slaveholders was the most intense. Both sides had no time to deal with California, which was exactly what Liang Zhao wanted. He only needed to express California's attitude. If California's statement triggered a relatively large response and pushed California to the forefront, such a reaction would be extremely unfavorable to California. Liang Zhao could not help but secretly rejoice that he discovered this problem in time and did not let the slavery abolition dispute continue to ferment in California. After finishing these things, Liang Zhao met with Hong Mingxiang. "Brother Liang, you have been waiting for me so hard." Hong Mingxiang clasped his fists and bowed to Liang Zhao. "I didn't know that General Hong was here. I failed to welcome you from afar. I hope you will forgive me for my neglect," Liang Zhao said politely. His fifth uncle Liang Zhao had already revealed to him the purpose of Hong Mingxiang's visit. Hong Mingxiang came to California specifically to buy arms. The foreign ship that Brother Liang gave me last time is very good and travels very fast. Although the guns on the ship are a little small, they can shoot accurately and quickly. Now this ship has become Mr. Hong's boat. Hong Mingxiang praised the Loach-class warship that Liang Zhao gave him. The Loach-class gunboat with a displacement of only 500 tons is a small boat in the West, but in the combat sequence of the Guangdong Navy, a warship of this size is definitely not a small boat. What's more, the Loach-class is still a steam-powered ship. The 3-inch muzzle-loading rifled guns loaded on the side of the ship are a little small, but they can not only shoot solid bullets but also shotguns and explosive bombs, and the performance is not outdated. If you insist on saying that the Loach-class has any shortcomings, it is that the Loach-class does not have the ability to sail alone in the ocean. After all, the tonnage is there. However, as a near-shore patrol gunboat, the Loach-class is absolutely qualified. Anyway, the Navy of the Qing dynasty does not have a long-distance combat mission, and its function is only to be responsible for near-shore defense. The cheap, relatively easy to maintain, small and flexible patrol boats like the Loach-class are a very cost-effective choice for the Qing Navy. Since they are easy to use, why not buy a few more? Liang Zhao said with a smile. I came here to buy ships. The merchants in Guangzhou donated some silver this time, plus the silver allocated by Governor Su, which is just enough to buy a few new ships for the Guangdong Navy, Hong Mingxiang said with a smile. But this ship sails on the ocean, relying entirely on the steam engine to drive the paddle wheel. Once the engine goes wrong, the ship will be unable to move. Brother Liang is a kind person. Not only did he give me a ship, he also sent sailors to teach my brothers how to drive the ship. However, the soldiers under my command are stupid and can only drive the ship, not repair it. Once there is a problem with the steam engine, the ship will anchor at the mouth of the Pearl River. In the end, it is entrusted to Brother Liang's shipyard for repair. Something went wrong? What's the problem? Liang Zhao asked with a frown. The users of the Loach-class patrol gunboats are not only Hong Mingxiang, but also the anti-smuggling team of the California Department of Revenue. The civilian ship Hope is all over the routes of Jinshan Bay, becoming the mainstay of California's offshore shipping and inland shipping. Liang Zhao has never heard anyone complain about the high failure rate of the Loach-class, which shows that this type of ship is qualified, and the steam engine and boiler on the ship are also qualified. The workers in the Xiangshan shipyard said that this is due to the lack of maintenance of the boiler on weekdays, Hong Mingxiang said embarrassedly. It turned out that this was the reason. Liang Zhao suddenly realized that the Guangdong Navy had no steamships before. This Loach-class was the first steamship of the Guangdong Navy. The officers and soldiers of the Guangdong Navy had no experience in maintaining steamships. In the Loach-class patrol gunboats used in California, each ship is equipped with a special mechanic responsible for the daily maintenance of the steam engine and boiler. Even for the same type of civilian ships, each ship is equipped with a special mechanic. Obviously, Hong Mingxiang does not have relevant talents under his command. High degree of specialization and high technical threshold are also what distinguishes the modern Navy from the traditional Navy. Pulling a group of fishermen and a group of pirates can organize a powerful maritime force, and the days of dominating one side are gradually fading away with the emergence of advanced warships. Having modern warships does not mean having a modern Navy. The Navy is a system, not a few warships. I see. Liang Zhao nodded with understanding. I am also here on the orders of Governor Su. Governor Su ordered me to requisition a piece of land in Huangpu to build a dock for repairing Guangdong Navy ships. Governor Su means that if Brother Liang is willing to send instructors to teach the sailors of the Guangdong Navy how to maintain and repair the steamship, the Guangdong Navy can consider purchasing more Loach boats as appropriate, Hong Mingxiang said. It seems that Su Guangjin wants to buy the logistics service together. There are still knowledgeable people among the officials of the Qing dynasty. If there are only ships but no maintenance and repair capabilities, no matter how good the performance of the warship is, it is just a decoration. That depends on how many warships the Guangdong Navy wants to add, Liang Zhao said with a smile. If it's one or two, if there is a problem in the future, just tow it to Xiangshan for repair. Guangzhou and Xiangshan are not far apart. 5. Hong Mingxiang stretched out his palm, made a 5 gesture and smiled. No problem, no problem. General Hong has made a fortune, Liang Zhao smiled. You and I are compatriots, I won't raise the price. I will sell it to you at the cost, and then select some capable Chinese pilots to go to Huangpu to teach the brothers of the Guangdong Navy how to maintain this steamship. The steamship needs to be maintained not only in the steam engine and boiler, but also in the cannons on the ship, and the ammunition is also often maintained on the ship, otherwise it will soon become useless like the old cannons on the Xiangshan Fort and the Human Fort. 5 Loach-class patrol gunboats. This is a big order for the San Francisco shipyard, and it is reasonable to provide some supporting services. The Qing dynasty is a potential big customer. The Qing dynasty in the mid-19th century was in decline, but with its huge size, its GDP was still the highest in the world. Although the people were poor, before the Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895, the Qing government still had some money in its treasury. As for the gentry, they were even richer. I was just about to talk to Brother Liang about cannons and foreign guns. Hong Mengxiang rubbed his hands and said, I heard that Brother Liang has an arsenal in Sacramento that can produce foreign guns and cannons. Can you take me to visit one or two? These days waiting for you in California, I was so bored that I wanted to visit Brother Liang's arsenal, but I was driven out. They said that no one could enter the arsenal without your order. The people under you are ignorant and speak and act without care. Please forgive me, General Hong, and don't take it to heart. Liang is here to apologize to General Hong. Liang Yao bowed slightly to Hong Mengxiang to show his apology. No, a military stronghold should not allow outsiders to enter easily. I should learn this from you. Hong Mengxiang was very generous. If General Hong wants to visit the arsenal, I will take him to Sacramento for a tour. Liang Yao asked, may I ask if Governor Su's Dubao battalion wants to replace foreign guns and cannons? Chapter 344. This gun is very good. Not only Governor Su's Dubao battalion needs to replace foreign guns and cannons, but also Governor Yi's Fubao battalion and my Tibao battalion need to buy some. Governor Su and Governor Yi have observed the training of the Yu Yuan battalion and were very impressed by this kind of quick-firing gun that can fire by itself, and ordered me to come and purchase some guns and ammunition, Hong Mengxiang said. Baoying can be simply understood as the field army in the Qing Army's Green Camp combat sequence. After the world was settled, the main task of the Qing dynasty's regular army changed from military combat to defense of the people. The Green Camp soldiers from various provinces were stationed in various ports and used as public security police. The number of people in each port is the same as that of the battalion. There is no fixed number, ranging from a small port with only a few people to a large port with dozens of people. As for how many people there are in each port, it depends on the importance of the port. Although the Green Camp is called a battalion, it is difficult to see a Green Camp stationed and trained in battalions during the Kangxi period. The reason why the Manchu Qing government divided the Green Camp soldiers into small units and scattered them in various ports was to maintain its own rule. The bannermen had a small population, and the pampered bannermen did not like to leave the colorful world of the capital to garrison in various places, so the number of garrison 8 banners in various places was very limited. It was obviously not enough to rely on these sparsely populated garrison 8 banners to maintain rule. Therefore, the Qing dynasty had to use the more numerous Han Green Camp to maintain public security in various places. But they did not trust the Han people, and they were always on guard against the Han people, so they divided the Green Camp into small pieces and dispersed it in various ports to maintain public security. Even if these Han Green Camps wanted to rebel, each Green Camp was scattered in various places as a unit of the port, and could not gather many people. The garrison 8 banners in various places could also extinguish the flames of rebellion relatively easily. Facts have proved that this move by the Qing high-level officials was successful, and maintained their own rule at a relatively small cost. But this move also had a very fatal disadvantage, that is, these Green Camp soldiers who lacked training and had no experience in coordinated operations. They were no longer suitable for use as field military forces and had completely become public security police. Even if the battalion officers in various places gathered the soldiers from various stations to perform tasks during the war, the battalion officers did not know the soldiers they had received, resulting in a situation where the soldiers did not know the generals and the generals did not know the soldiers. This is why the 7,000 British troops were able to roam the Qing sea borders as if they were in an unmanned land, and the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's mob was able to march all the way from Guangxi to Hunan, Hubei, Zhangzi, Anhui, and finally take Nanjing. The main force in the Opium War and the early suppression of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom movement was these standard battalions that could still fight. The so-called 800,000 Qing troops faced by the British Army were actually 800,000 public security police responsible for filling the line. In actual combat, the gap between the number of British and Qing troops was not as exaggerated as people imagined. The British Army could even use its mobility advantage to create a numerical advantage in local battlefields and then encircle and annihilate the Qing army. Liang Zhao's second uncle Deng Yan served in Guan Xianpei's standard battalion in his early years. This standard battalion was annihilated by the British Army at Human Fort. There were a total of 4 types of standard battalions in the Qing dynasty. One is the Dubao camp and Fubao camp of the civil officials, which are the personal soldiers of the governors and governors of each province, and the mobile forces that the governors and governors can directly mobilize. Generally speaking, the Dubao camp has 2 to 5 battalions, with a number of people ranging from 1,000 to 4,000 or 5,000. The number of the Zibao camp in the Qing dynasty was quite flexible, and it was very normal for the number of people in the same unit to differ by several times. The Fubao camp has a slightly smaller establishment, with only 2 to 3 battalions, and the number of people ranges from a few hundred to 2,000. Because the civil officials hold the right to speak and the power to allocate local finances, the Dubao and Fubao are often the most elite military forces in a province. As for the Dubao camp, 3 to 5 battalions, of the Admiral of the military officer system, and the Zhenbao camp, 2 to 5 battalions, of the General, although they have an advantage over the Governor's Bao camp in terms of establishment. However, the soldiers of the Dubao camp and Zhenbao camp are not as well treated as the Governor's Bao camp, and their combat effectiveness is also slightly inferior. If the governors of Guangdong want to purchase foreign guns and cannons from him, the quantity is still very considerable. I'm afraid that Governor Su and Governor Yu want to add foreign guns and cannons to the standard camp for more reasons. Liang Zhao took Hong Mingxiang, Liang Shaoqiang and their entourage to board the special train to Sacramento. This was not the first time that Hong Mingxiang, Liang Shaoqiang and others took a train. The 2 of them had arrived in San Francisco in mid-April. Before Liang Zhao returned to California, they had already taken a train to travel around California. Therefore, they are now used to taking trains and are not too surprised. Brother Liang's eyes are still sharper. In the second year of Emperor Xianfeng's reign, 1852, Brother Liang surrendered the Japanese pirates with only 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers and made them sign the Nagasaki Treaty and the Edo Treaty, the U.S.-Japan Treaty of Amity. Governor Su was very surprised. He didn't expect that there was such a warlike country besides England among the Western countries. In addition, the Taiping rebels had already taken Jiangning and occupied half of the southeast. Governor Su was worried that one day the Taiping rebels would go south to Guangdong and Guangxi, and it would be difficult to deal with them. Hong Mingxiang found a seat and sat down, shaking the copper bell skillfully and ordering a cup of tea. That makes sense. I wonder how many foreign guns and cannons General Hong is ordered to purchase this time. Liang Zhao took out a match, lifted one leg and rubbed the match head on his leather shoes. Then picked up the lit match and lit the cigarette in his mouth. I wonder how much the foreign guns Brother Liang sold are for. Hong Mingxiang asked Liang Zhao about the unit price of foreign guns. Foreign rifles that use paper shell bullets are sold at $25 each, and foreign rifles that use metal shell bullets are sold at $30 each. Liang Zhao quoted the price of the guns and added, if it is the Hong army who wants to buy it, Liang will suffer a loss. Each gun comes with 100 bullets. As the production of guns increases, the manufacturing cost of guns has also decreased. The manufacturing cost of the Walter M1851E is $13.40 per rifle, and the manufacturing cost of the Walter M1851 is $18.70 per rifle. When it was just put into production, the manufacturing cost of the Walter M1851E was $15.25 per rifle, and the manufacturing cost of the Walter M1851 was $20.30 per rifle. Compared with the Springfield M1842, which is currently commonly equipped by the American Army and sells for $8 per rifle, the Walter M1851 rifle, which has been put into mass production, still has no price advantage. So far, only a few colonels in the United States have ordered a small number of Walter M1851E rifles to equip their troops, and Robert, the president of the West Point Military Academy, has ordered 500 Walter M1851E rifles as teaching aids. This type of firearm is not successful in the domestic market of the United States, and the cumulative sales in the United States currently do not exceed 5,000. In the American Army, only Liang Zhao's Arizona Infantry Regiment is rich and powerful and fully equipped with this type of firearms. As for the California Infantry Regiment, the standard weapon currently equipped is the dresser needle gun. Liang Zhao also needs to open up overseas markets and sell his arms to ease the pressure on the Sacramento arsenal and strive to make the Sacramento arsenal profitable. If you want to make the arsenal profitable in a relatively short period of time by relying on large-scale arms sales, it can only be achieved by selling arms in the international market. As for the colonels in the United States, they would rather spend $8 to buy an outdated smoothbore rifle to equip their soldiers than spend $25 to buy a breech-loading rifle to equip their soldiers. Liang Zhao is currently optimistic about two major customers in the international market. One is the French Army, which is in urgent need of replacing standard light weapons, and the other is the Green Camp and Xianyang of the Qin dynasty. Liang Zhao asked Hu Jinshan to take a Walter M1851 rifle from the accompanying guard and give it to Hong Mingxiang for inspection. Hong Mingxiang played with this well-made and well-maintained rifle and praised it highly. Good gun, good gun. Hong Mingxiang put his eyes close to the muzzle. This gun has a yin-yang line? Is this the reason why this gun is so accurate? I saw Guangdong warriors using this gun, and it was as easy as taking something out of a bag to hit a target 50 meters away. 166.5 meters away, compared with a foreign gun that Hong Mingxiang is holding now. The old matchlock guns equipped by the Green Camp are simply a pile of scrap copper and iron. Not to mention the target 50 meters away, even the target 5 meters away is often off the target. That's right, this is also the reason why this gun is more expensive than other foreign guns. This yin-yang line is not easy to cut. Take Liang's Sacramento arsenal as an example. When cutting the yin-yang line of 10 gun barrels, 1 or 2 of them are often scrapped, and the materials used for the gun barrels are all good materials, Liang Zhao said. To be honest with you, brother Liang, I like this gun very much. The price is too expensive. One that shoots paper shell bullets costs 16 taels of silver. The exchange rate between the US dollar and silver in the mid-19th century was approximately $1 to 0.637 taels of silver. Can it be cheaper? Hong Mingxiang began to bargain. It can't be any cheaper. If it's any cheaper, I won't make any money. When the foreigners come to me to buy guns, I sell them at the price without giving them bullets. Liang Zhao shook his head and said, for the sake of our friendship, I have given 100 bullets to each gun. These bullets are not cheap. Hong Mingxiang was about to bargain again, but Liang Zhao interrupted Hong Mingxiang and asked Hong Mingxiang, how about this, General Hong? Just tell me how many guns you want to buy this time. Hong Mingxiang thought for a long time, and then said, 5,000 guns, the kind that shoot paper shell bullets, but the kind that shoots metal bullets is too expensive. General Hong, how about this? If you buy these 5,000 guns at a price, Liang will give you an extra 200 guns. Liang Zhao said 5,000 guns is not a small deal, with a total price of $125,000. This is the largest order since the establishment of the Sacramento arsenal. This has exceeded the sales volume of the gun in the United States since it was put into production. Liang Zhao can give Hong Mingxiang an additional 200 guns. That's great. Hong Mingxiang thought about it and agreed. After discussing the sale of the gun, Hong Mingxiang asked about the price of the cannon. I wonder how much the foreign cannon produced here costs, brother Liang. Cannon? Cannons are much more expensive than guns, Liang Zhao said. Rifled cannons and unrifled cannons, large caliber cannons and small caliber cannons, front-loading cannons and rear-loading cannons. The price difference is not a little bit, I know this. How can the prices of different cannons be generalized? Hong Mingxiang said, brother Liang, tell me the truth first, so that I can have an idea in my mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Sacramento Arsenal. The guns produced by the Sacramento Arsenal are mostly 6-pound, 8-pound, 10-pound, and 12-pound rifled guns. The price of a 6-pound rifled gun is around $700, and the price of a 12-pound rifled gun is around $1,500. This is just an approximate price. The specific price depends on the different guns. Liang Zhao put out the cigarette that was about to be finished in the ashtray and added, "This is the price of the gun body. If you want to add a gun carriage, the price will be calculated separately." The Sacramento arsenal was basically built by poaching the team of the Springfield arsenal and buying the production line of the Springfield arsenal. Whatever guns the Springfield arsenal can make, the Sacramento arsenal can make. Previously, the guns produced by the Springfield arsenal were mainly the field 6-pound smoothbore gun and the 12-pound smoothbore gun, as well as the old-fashioned M1841 6-pound gun, which is the so-called Little Napoleon gun. As for why the Springfield arsenal insisted on producing smoothbore guns, even though it knew that smoothbore guns were outdated, the reason is also very simple. That is, smoothbore cannons are much cheaper than rifled cannons. Springfield Armory knows that the American Army wants cheaper cannons rather than more advanced cannons. This is why among all the arsenals in the United States, Springfield Armory can thrive. It is not only the largest supplier of standard light weapons to the U.S. Army, but also one of the largest suppliers of artillery to the U.S. Army artillery. Springfield Armory not only knows how to make weapons, but also understands the minds of the congressmen. Today, smoothbore cannons are still the mainstream artillery of the American Army. Not to mention now, until the outbreak of the Civil War, the main artillery equipped by the artillery of both the North and the South was still the smoothbore cannon dominated by the Napoleon cannon, and the proportion of rifled cannons was pitiful. And these few rifled cannons are still Napoleon cannons that are directly rifled on the barrel of the smoothbore cannon. However, since Liang Zhao has obtained the drawings of the Armstrong cannon and 4 experimental cannons, these outdated cannons will gradually be eliminated by the Sacramento arsenal. The next focus of the artillery production department of the Sacramento arsenal is to imitate the epoch-making Armstrong cannon, rather than continue to manufacture these outdated weapons. The Sacramento arsenal is located in a valley in the northern suburbs of Sacramento, about 5 kilometers away from the downtown area of Sacramento. Fortunately, the Sacramento arsenal has long been connected to the train, so going to the Sacramento arsenal is just a matter of taking a few more minutes on the train, without having to change to other means of transportation. A few minutes later, the train arrived in Sacramento and slowly drove into the station. After getting off the train, Hong Mingxiang looked back at the train behind him that was emitting black smoke, and couldn't help but sigh. This railway and train are really convenient. On weekdays, they can carry freight and passengers, and in wartime, they can also transport troops and transport food and supplies. This thing is better than tens of thousands of civilians. It is really a military, national artifact. After arriving in California, Hong Mingxiang was like a frog at the bottom of a well seeing the outside world, which made him realize a lot. At the same time, Hong Mingxiang also became more and more clear about the reason why they lost to the English. It was not just that their guns and cannons were inferior to others. The United States, whose national strength was far inferior to that of England, still had so many novel things and could produce such advanced guns and cannons. What about England, the first power in the West? Railways do have great military value. Liang Zhao made a gesture of invitation. "General Hong, please come in." Liang Zhao took Hong Mingxiang into the Sacramento arsenal. The accompanying soldiers and the gun and cannon engineers that the Rothschild family had dug from France were also busy. They unloaded the 4 experimental guns produced by Armstrong Company that Liang Zhao had brought from the train and dragged them into the Sacramento arsenal for testing. The director of the Sacramento arsenal was Sutter, but Sutter was also the mayor of Sacramento. Although Sutter was nominally the director of the Sacramento arsenal, he was not responsible for the specific production and operation of the arsenal. The person who was specifically responsible for the specific production work of the Sacramento arsenal was the deputy director Owen Brooks. Before coming to the Sacramento arsenal, Brooks worked at the Springfield arsenal and was one of the chief gun engineers there. "Brooks, don't you often complain that the arsenal has no orders? Now a big customer has come to visit our arsenal. This customer has ordered 5,000 Walter M1851E rifles from us and is also very interested in the cannons produced by our Sacramento arsenal. Take this customer to visit our Sacramento arsenal production line," Liang Zhao said to Brooks. "Your Excellency, please come in." Brooks was overjoyed when he heard this and hurriedly invited Hong Mingxiang and others to visit the workshop. The machine tool industry was originally one of the few advantageous industries in the United States. In the mid-19th century, American machine tools were not much inferior to British machine tools. Even in later generations, America's high-end CNC machine tools were still the benchmark in the industry. In 1851, Liang Zhao purchased a large number of processing machine tools, milling machines, drilling machines, rifling machines and profiling engraving machines from the eastern region, and recruited a large number of talents to California. California's machine tool industry is at the first echelon level, not to mention in the United States, even if it is looking at the world. All kinds of machine tools in the Sacramento arsenal have now been replaced with machine tools produced in California. These machine tools mainly come from General Machinery Company under the American Group and Pratt & Whitney, founded by Pratt & Whitney. These two companies are the few machinery companies in the world that can produce machine tools with a processing accuracy error of less than 2 mm, and are the benchmarks of the California machinery industry. Brooks first took Hong Ming Xiang to visit the production line of the Walter M1851 rifle. The rifle production line has a very high degree of automation. The rifling of the barrel is directly pulled by the rifling machine, the mechanical parts of the gun are processed by the processing machine tool, and the buttstock is directly engraved by the profiling engraving machine. The only link that requires a lot of manpower is the final assembly of the firearms. This link cannot be automated at present and can only be completed manually. The gun production workshop of the Sacramento arsenal amazed Hong Ming Xiang and others. Compared with the Sacramento arsenal, the small workshops producing matchlock guns in the Qing dynasty were really unbearable. Even the French gun engineers who had just arrived at the Sacramento arsenal were greatly shocked. They came to California reluctantly for the high salary. As citizens of one of the most powerful countries in Europe, these gun engineers from France looked down on the United States to some extent. They had prejudices against the United States and believed that the industry of the second-rate country of the United States was not remarkable. After all, without the assistance of France, it was still unknown whether the United States could become a country. Their impression of the United States still remained at the beginning of the founding of the United States. After seeing the gun production workshop of the Sacramento arsenal with their own eyes, these French gun engineers had a subversive understanding of the United States and California. The Sacramento arsenal is more advanced than any arsenal they have worked in France. Working as a gunner engineer in this arsenal not only earns a high salary, but also allows them to design and manufacture world-leading guns and artillery. Thinking of this, these French gunner engineers can't help but feel excited. To their surprise, in addition to them, there are many workers and engineers from France in this arsenal, and it is not difficult for them to integrate here. More importantly, this place is full of vitality. This is their most profound impression of California after coming to California. Practitioners from all walks of life are full of vitality. Even the prostitutes in San Francisco are more enthusiastic and hard-working than the prostitutes in Paris. Chapter 346 De Young's Conscience. How many muskets can the Sacramento arsenal produce every day? And when can my 5,100 muskets and related ammunition be delivered? After visiting the rifle production workshop of the Sacramento arsenal, Hong Ming Xiang asked about the production of muskets and when the purchased guns could be delivered. It can produce 120 muskets a day. As for the muskets purchased by Hong Junman, they can all be delivered after the money is paid. Liang Zhao gave Hong Ming Xiang a clear answer. The current production capacity of light weapons at the Sacramento arsenal is second only to Springfield Armory and Colt among all American arms dealers. This is when Liang Zhao did not expand the production line. With the current industrial level and number of industrial workers in California, as long as Liang Zhao is willing, it is not a problem to double the production capacity of firearms by investing more money in the Sacramento arsenal, expanding another production line, and recruiting more workers. However, there is no need for this. At present, the warehouse of the Sacramento arsenal has a stock of 32,500 Walter M1851E rifles and 11,000 Walter M1851 rifles. These stocks are enough for Liang Zhao's own use and export. Even if Liang Zhao completes the expansion of 4 regiments in a short period of time and forms the Western Brigade, these stocked firearms are still more than enough. Unless there are large orders from the Qing dynasty, France or other countries in the future, Liang Zhao will not consider expanding the production capacity of the Sacramento arsenal. The operation of the arsenal must also take into account economic benefits. Blind investment is not conducive to the subsequent healthy development of the Sacramento arsenal. Hong Mingxiang was very satisfied to learn that the batch of firearms he ordered could be delivered immediately. His batch of guns is urgently needed, so naturally he hopes that it will be delivered as soon as possible. After leaving the rifle production workshop, Liang Zhao took Hong Mingxiang and others to visit the revolver production workshop. Compared with the large-scale rifle production workshop, the pistol production workshop is much smaller. The output is also much smaller than that of rifles. The daily output of revolvers is 30 to 40, but this output is enough to meet the needs of the army. In Liang Zhao's army, only officers above the rank of NCO are issued a pistol for free, and currently, including the militia in training, there are less than 300 officers above the rank of NCO in the army. However, there is a tradition of soldiers buying their own weapons in the United States, and many soldiers will choose to buy a revolver at their own expense for self-defense. The revolvers produced by the Sacramento Arsenal are patents number 6909, purchased from the United Kingdom, which is the patent for the Colt revolver. The Sacramento version of the Colt revolver is authorized by Colt to be produced. The revolver looks simple in structure and principle, but the actual mass production is another matter. The locking, firing, and firing structures are also relatively complicated, and there is still a technical threshold. Moreover, if the United States wants to mass-produce revolvers and put them on the market, Colt is a company that cannot be avoided. Of course, in the field of revolvers, in addition to Colt, Liang Zhao can also seek cooperation with Remington. These two companies are currently the two largest pistol manufacturers in the United States. However, although the quality of the revolvers produced by Remington is similar to that of the revolvers produced by Colt, Colt's marketing is good and there are big trees behind it to provide shade. From the civilian to the official, everyone in the United States generally recognizes Colt's revolvers. They believe that the revolvers produced by Colt are high-end and reliable, while the revolvers produced by Remington are low-end, inferior and unreliable. Only some senior users who are more familiar with pistols are willing to choose to buy Remington's revolvers. These senior users know very well that the Remington revolver, which is priced $1.50 lower than the Colt revolver, has the same performance as the Colt revolver of the same price and is more cost-effective. However, there are still only a few senior users who really understand the inside story. More gun buyers are still willing to follow the trend and choose the revolvers of the more famous Colt. Therefore, the sales of Remington's revolvers are very bleak, with sales of only a few hundred per year. Colt, which has a lot of business in the British market, American government orders, and the American civilian market, is far less prosperous than Colt. At the same time, the annual sales of Colt's revolvers were calculated in units of 10,000. If Remington had not also had the business of hunting rifles, and bullets, Remington would have gone bankrupt long ago. After weighing the pros and cons, Liang Zhao still felt that it was more cost-effective to cooperate with Colt. After all, Remington not only had patent disputes, but the licensing price was not much lower than Colt. Fortunately, the money was not wasted. The Sacramento Arsenal has 3 production departments: Rifle Production Department, Pistol Production Department, and Cannon Production Department. The Pistol Production Department is currently the only profitable production department among the 3 departments. There are 2 main reasons for this. One is that at this time, Colt's revolvers were popular in America and had a good reputation among the people, especially among the Western pioneers. With the help of Colt, the Sacramento version of the revolver also achieved good sales among the people. The second is that the Colt revolvers produced by the Sacramento Arsenal are made of more solid materials, better workmanship, and better bullets than the original Colt revolvers. Many officers of the U.S. Army and Navy have come to the Sacramento Arsenal to purchase revolvers. Rich officers value their lives more than lower-level soldiers, and are willing to spend money on weapons with better performance and reliability. However, the Sacramento Arsenal does not intend to continue to produce the Colt revolvers authorized by Colt. Although the Sacramento version of the Colt revolver is quite profitable, a considerable licensing fee must be paid to Colt for each Sacramento version of the revolver produced. In the end, the profit margin left for the Sacramento Arsenal is not large. Under the instructions of Liang Zhao, the research and development team of the Sacramento Arsenal's pistol department is currently developing a double-action revolver that can bypass Colt's patent. After visiting the pistol production workshop, Liang Zhao selected 10 Sacramento version Colt revolvers in wooden gift boxes as gifts for Hong Mingxiang, and also gave Hong Mingxiang the ivory-handled carved Colt pistol he carried with him. This was a gift Colt gave to Liang Zhao after he was promoted to brigadier general. In addition to Hong Mingxiang, the attendants who followed him all the way also received a Sacramento version revolver. Everyone was very happy. After a test shooting at a test site, they thought it was simply a self-defense weapon. With such a chain pistol, even if you meet someone with high martial arts skills, it is difficult to get close. Hong Mingxiang's trusted deputy General Kang Ens praised the pistol in his hand after testing a cylinder of bullets. Hong Mingxiang was also shocked by the firing rate of the Colt revolver. It was the first time he had seen a firearm that could fire 6 bullets in a row. Although Liang Zhao had carried a Colt revolver with him when he went to Xiangshan before, he had never used it in front of other people. Hong Mingxiang didn't care much about Liang Zhao's sidearm, but she didn't expect that Liang Zhao would wear this thing on his waist. How much does this musket cost? Before Liang Zhao sold the Colt revolver to Hong Mingxiang had already made up her mind to buy some Colt revolvers. $16 a gun, as usual. If you buy enough, you will get 100 bullets for each gun. Liang Zhao smiled. The profit of Colt revolvers is very high. Depending on the quality and workmanship of the pistols, the unit manufacturing cost of Colt revolvers is between $4 and $9. Due to the need to pay Colt's licensing fees and patent fees, the Sacramento arsenal cannot compete with Colt in the field of mid and low-end revolvers. At present, only high-quality revolvers are produced, including various fees paid to Colt. The cost of the Sacramento version of Colt revolvers is as high as $11 per pistol. The price of $18 per pistol is already quite conscientious. At least it is more conscientious than Colt. The tricks played by the black-hearted entrepreneurs of a certain country in the future, the black-hearted entrepreneurs of the United States have already mastered them to perfection. The revolvers produced by Colt have 3 different versions and prices. One is the foreign trade version sold to the British government, which I would like to call the conscientious version. This version is the cheapest, with a unit price of only $12.50. The other is the civilian version sold to the public, with a unit price of $14.50. The last one is the black-hearted version provided to the federal government, with a unit price of an astonishing $25. However, in addition to the difference in price, the quality of these 3 versions of revolvers is also different, but it is not that the higher the price, the better the quality. Instead, the higher the price, the worse the quality. The foreign trade version exported to the British government is the best quality, while the revolvers provided to the federal government are the worst quality. With such behavior, it is no exaggeration to say that Colt is the conscience of the British Empire. Colt has also been complained and even sued for deliberately providing inferior weapons to the federal government, but it is still safe and sound. The reason is of course self-evident. Such a huge profit business must be accompanied by interest transfer. There are many politicians in the North and the South who accept political donations from Colt. During the Whig Party's internal election last year, General Scott, the commander of the army, accepted political donations from Colt. Of course, Liang Zhao himself also accepted it. Since his colleagues in the army have all accepted it, if he does not accept it, he will appear to be out of touch. He does not want to make the relationship with his colleagues in the army too stiff. Very good, very good. Can this handgun be delivered immediately like the long gun? If possible, Hong will buy 1,000. This time, Hong Mingxiang was very generous and did not think the price of the pistol was expensive. Among the 1,000 revolvers, 500 were purchased by him for himself. After getting Liang Zhao's advice, he sent people to Southeast Asia to pan for gold, and earned some gold, so he had enough money. It was just right for him to buy some handy weapons to arm his men who were panning for gold in Southeast Asia. After Hong Mingxiang placed the order, Hong Mingxiang's entourage also expressed their desire to purchase some. In the end, a total of 1,520 Sacramento version Colt revolvers were sold, which was equivalent to clearing half of the pistol inventory. After this trip, the employees of the Sacramento arsenal were very happy. Employees at all levels of the Sacramento arsenal hold 30% of the shares of the arsenal. The better the performance of the arsenal, the more dividends they will get at the end of the year. Chapter 347 Technical Sergeant. After reviewing the rifles and pistols, it was time for the cannons. This batch of arms orders from Guangdong came at a very timely moment. If this order could be successfully completed, Liang Zhao could invest less money in the Sacramento arsenal this year, and the money saved could be used for other purposes. The Sacramento arsenal, which was officially established in 1851, was finally able to open up an overseas market. This was a milestone for California's military enterprises. Liang Zhao asked the staff of the arsenal to select one of each type of artillery that the Sacramento arsenal could produce and bring it to the test site for testing. The test was also accompanied by 4 Armstrong cannons obtained from special channels. This test was not only to promote the artillery produced by the Sacramento arsenal to Hongmeng and others, but also to compare the performance of the Armstrong cannon with these old artillery and transitional artillery. Finally, the focus of research and development and production of the artillery department of the Sacramento arsenal will be decided in the future. The test included 6-pound muzzle-loading smoothbore guns, small Napoleon guns, 6-pound muzzle-loading rifle guns, 6-pound breech-loading rifle guns, 10-pound muzzle-loading smoothbore guns, 10-pound muzzle-loading rifle guns, and 12-pound muzzle-loading smoothbore guns and 12-pound muzzle-loading rifle guns. These are all the artillery models that the Sacramento arsenal can produce at present. The main artillery parameters of this test are range, rate of fire, and lethality. The first to be tested were various types of 6-pound guns. The 6-pound gun is a field gun currently equipped by the artillery company because it is relatively light, flexible, and powerful. According to the establishment of the Federal Army Artillery, a 6-pound gun is served by an artillery team of 3 to 5 people. 1 to 2 soldiers hold the worm and the ramrod, responsible for cleaning the barrel and pushing the bullet. 1 to 2 soldiers are responsible for passing the loading of ammunition, and 1 soldier is responsible for pulling the fire. Compared with the establishment of the Federal Army Artillery Regiment, Liang Zhao's 6-pound gun artillery team consists of 6 people. Each gun was equipped with a sergeant with a T rank, who is responsible for the aiming and correction of the gun. The so-called T means that there is a letter T on the rank insignia, which is the first letter of technology. The rank with T means technical sergeant, which is the rank system implemented by Liang Zhao in his army with reference to the rank of the U.S. military in World War II. After the Pearl Harbor incident, the United States officially joined the war and began to expand its army in full swing. The technical arms of the army needed a large number of relevant technical talents. In order to attract engineers and technicians to join the army, on January 8, 1942, the U.S. Army officially added 3 technical posts at the non-commissioned officer level, namely, the 5th level technical sergeant, T5, the 4th level technical sergeant, T4, and the 3rd level technical sergeant, T3. Drivers, mechanics, radio operators, medical technicians, and military music-related technicians can obtain the corresponding technical sergeant rank after passing the recruit training and technical assessment. The most direct benefit that technical sergeants can get compared to ordinary sergeants is higher wages. While attracting more relevant technical talents to sign up for the Army, this new rank system does not disrupt the original command system. Take ordinary soldiers as an example. For the same recruits, the salary of the completed recruits with T is 25% higher than that of the completed recruits without T. This system has been tested by war, and it has been proved that the 3rd level sergeant technical post system of the U.S. military in World War II was very successful. Of course, the basis for implementing the system is that the country has completed industrialization and has sufficient technical talent reserves in the country. Even if an agricultural country implements this system, it may not achieve the same results as the United States. This is why Liang Zhao spared no effort to attract industrial workers from the East and even Europe to work in California. These industrial workers can not only create a lot of real wealth in peacetime, but also represent greater war potential in wartime. In Liang Zhao's army, the salary of sergeants with T is 25% higher than that of sergeants of the same level. However, there are not many technical branches in Liang Zhao's army at present. Only 1 artillery company and an engineering company have technical sergeants. At the same time, Liang Zhao is now considering setting up a special communications company. The technical sergeants of the artillery company are equipped with luxurious equipment. In addition to the sabers for self-defense and the Sacramento version of the Colt revolver, they are also equipped with a monocular telescope for observing the battlefield situation and the location of the artillery. It can be said that the technical sergeants of the artillery company are armed to the teeth in terms of both hardware and software. Only Liang Zhao's artillery company in the United States dares to be so arrogant in delegating such expensive equipment as telescopes to officers at the sergeant level. In the 3 active artillery regiments in the United States, even the lieutenants at the level of company commanders may not have popularized telescopes. The gunners of the three artillery teams responsible for testing three different types of 6-pound cannons first measured the range of the target, and then commanded their soldiers to adjust the muzzle and elevation angle of the artillery. After the various parameters were adjusted, the soldiers holding the worm and the ramrod pushed one end of the worm into the barrel and cleaned the residue in the barrel according to the provisions in the training manual. Kang Ens, who was watching from the side, was eager to fire the guns and see the power of the American cannons. At the same time, he also hoped that the visit to the Sacramento arsenal would end soon, so that he could go back to San Francisco to ride foreign horses. The seemingly unnecessary actions of the gunners made Kang Ens complain. This is a newly pulled gun, and the barrel must be clean. Besides, if there is any foreign matter in the barrel, can't we just take a look with our eyes? Why go to so much trouble? It's daytime now, and the foreign matter in the barrel may be visible to the eyes, but what if it's night? Do you use your eyes to see it? Liang Zhao asked back. My artillerymen are very precious, and they are all fed with artillery shells. If they are damaged because of the explosion of the cannon, my heart will bleed. Liang Zhao's words are not exaggerating. The infantry cannon fodder brothers who fill the line are easy to find and easy to train into an army. But experienced artillerymen with combat experience are not easy to find. Liang Zhao's artillerymen were all experienced artillerymen who had been recruited from all over the place. He trained this only artillery company as a future artillery sergeant or even a lieutenant. As long as he had this elite artillery company as the base, he could quickly expand an artillery company into an artillery regiment at the fastest speed during wartime. An improper operation caused casualties in an artillery team. It seemed that only one artillery team was lost, but in fact, an artillery company was lost. How could he not feel distressed? How could his heart not bleed? Liang Zhao's soul-searching question made Kang Ens speechless. Stop talking nonsense and embarrass yourself, Hong Mingxiang kicked Kang Ens rudely, then swept his eyes over his confidants who were accompanying him. Take a good look at how General Liang's artillerymen fire the cannons. Open your eyes and look. I didn't bring you to California just to ride foreign horses. Learn some real skills and go back. Don't waste my money. After being scolded by Hong Mingxiang's entourage and confidants remained silent. They had to pay attention and watch how Liang Zhao's artillerymen operated and fired the cannons. Chapter 348 Artillery Test. The three artillery teams completed loading and fired the guns one after another. In the first round of test firing, although none of the three guns hit the target, the landing point of the shells was very close to the target. You know, the target of this test is 2 miles away from the gun. This distance has exceeded the effective range of the Qing Army's artillery of the same level, and it can maintain such a high shooting accuracy at such a long distance. Hong Mingxiang couldn't help but sigh at the excellence of Western artillery and the exquisite artillery technology. After correcting the parameters, the three gunners continued to bombard. In the second round of artillery, both rifled guns hit the wooden target, while the smoothbore guns of the same level did not hit the target until the third round of artillery. Such accurate artillery fire opened the eyes of Hong Mingxiang and others. The basic requirement of the Qing Army for artillery is to shoot the shells out of the barrel, and the highest requirement is to hit a general area at most. Hong Mingxiang didn't expect that the artillery could actually hit wherever they pointed, and hit so accurately, which subverted Hong Mingxiang's understanding of artillery. After the 1,000-meter target test, the next test was 1,300 meters, 1,500 meters, and the maximum effective range test. In the 1,300-meter shooting test, the hit rate of the smoothbore gun was further reduced, and it became very difficult to hit the target, while the two rifled guns were still able to maintain a relatively high hit rate. Such an outcome was also within Liang Zhao's expectations. The 6-pound smoothbore gun produced by the Sacramento arsenal had a maximum effective range of 1,300 meters. Since the next test had exceeded the maximum effective range of the 6-pound smoothbore gun, the 6-pound smoothbore gun withdrew from the next test, and the 6-pound muzzle-loading rifle gun and the breech-loading rifle gun continued to carry out the next test. After the test, the three gunners and the staff of the Sacramento arsenal conducted a test summary of the three 6-pound smoothbore guns. There is no doubt that in terms of range and accuracy, the two rifled guns are obviously superior to the smoothbore guns. If the two rifled guns are further compared, the accuracy of the muzzle-loading rifled gun is slightly higher than that of the breech-loading rifled gun. Of course, the smoothbore gun is not without merit. The smoothbore gun causes greater damage to the target, which means that the power is more considerable. In terms of power, the muzzle-loading rifled gun is also better than the breech-loading rifled gun. The reason for this situation is that the airtightness of the early breech-loading guns was poor, and the airtightness problem also affected the range. In terms of maximum effective range, the maximum effective range of the 6-pound smoothbore gun is 1,300 meters, the maximum effective range of the 6-pound breech-loading rifled gun is 1,600 meters, and the maximum effective range of the 6-pound muzzle-loading rifled gun is 1,700 meters. Combining the above data and actual performance, the muzzle-loading rifled gun seems to be the best choice. However, there is one data that is more eye-catching about the breech-loading rifled gun, that is, the rate of fire is faster than that of the muzzle-loading gun. The next tests were various 8-pound, 10-pound, and 12-pound guns. The huge power and recoil generated by the firing of these large-caliber cannons shocked Hong Mengxiang and his entourage. But the test of these guns was not the test that Liang Zhao was most concerned about. The test that he cared about most was the test of the last 4 Armstrong guns. The artillery group participating in the test was full of curiosity about this new artillery that had never been seen before. Since there was no ready-made instruction manual on how to use this kind of artillery, no personnel from the Amster company who participated in the test of the new artillery were found this time. Liang Zhao and the French engineers who had been in contact with the Amster gun could only tell these artillery teams how to use these new artillery based on their own experience. After figuring out how to use these artillery, the two teams began to test the 2 new breech-loading guns separately. As for the other 2 breech-loading guns, they will not participate in the test for the time being. Liang Zhao currently only has these 4 6-pound Armstrong gun samples, and he always has to prevent accidents from happening during the test, causing all the foreign guns to be damaged. Although these guns are still experimental guns, their performance is already quite impressive. The new tail bolt shooting makes the airtightness of the Armstrong gun better than the breech-loading rifled guns tested before. The firing rate is astonishingly 6 rounds per minute, that is, 1 round every 10 seconds. The 2 artillery teams participating in the test even said that as long as they are trained for a period of time, they can increase the firing rate to 7 rounds per minute or even higher. The same breech-loading rifled gun, the same 6-pound gun, the range of the Armstrong gun is 500 meters higher than the 6-pound breech-loading rifled gun produced by the Sacramento Arsenal, reaching an astonishing 2,100 meters. The artillerymen were amazed by the performance of this new artillery, and they all said that this was the best performance artillery they had ever seen, without this one. Some even asserted that this is a weapon that can change the balance of war. Liang Zhao listened carefully to the opinions of these artillerymen, and they all hoped that this kind of artillery could be equipped to the troops as soon as possible. Liang Zhao was also very satisfied with the performance of this new breech-loading gun. He handed over the relevant technical drawings and 4 sample guns to the artillery department of the Sacramento Arsenal. He asked the artillery department to digest the technology of Armstrong in the shortest possible time and imitate the replicas with performance not inferior to these sample guns. In the future, not only will the artillery need to be equipped with this excellent breech-loading gun, he will also move this breech-loading rifled gun to the warship. After feasting his eyes, Hong Mengxiang asked Liang Zhao, "Brother Liang, I see that you have equipped an artillery team with a lot of people, with 6 people serving a gun. In my opinion, with the quality of Brother Liang's artillery, 3 people can fully serve a gun in the future. Why don't you free up the surplus manpower and set up a few more artillery teams?" Hong Mengxiang felt that it was too wasteful to equip a gun with 6 people, and the number of people in each artillery team could be reduced. There are too many uncertainties on the battlefield. If I only equip an artillery team with 3 people, if the soldiers are reduced due to illness or injury, won't the team be useless? Liang Zhao answered Hong Mengxiang's doubts, but if a team has 6 people, even if the team loses more than half of its members, theoretically the artillery team can still exert its combat effectiveness. I'm enlightened. Brother Liang is still thoughtful, Hong Mengxiang suddenly realized and said he was enlightened. General Hong has seen the cannons now. I wonder how many cannons General Hong wants to buy? Liang Zhao asked. What is the price of a 6-pound smoothbore cannon? Is the smoothbore cannon cheaper than the rifled cannon? Hong Mengxiang began to inquire. Liang Zhao told Hong Mengxiang the price of the 6-pound rifled cannon and the 12-pound rifled cannon, which were about $700 and $1,500 respectively, but did not tell Hong Mengxiang the price of the smoothbore cannon. In Hong Mengxiang's view, the performance of the smoothbore cannon is already impressive enough, Better than all the cannons currently equipped by the Qing army. If smoothbore guns were cheaper, Hong Mengxiang would be more willing to buy more smoothbore guns under a limited budget. A 6-pound smoothbore gun is $500, and a 12-pound smoothbore gun is $1,200. Liang Zhao thought about it and gave the price. Chapter 349, Sooner rather than later. Hong Mengxiang was more interested in smoothbore guns, and Liang Zhao was not too surprised. After all, smoothbore guns were cheaper. Moreover, in the mid-19th century, the artillery of the great powers was mainly equipped with smoothbore guns, and smoothbore guns were not too outdated at this time. If we buy 56-pound guns and 30 12-pound guns, can we buy some shells like buying guns? Hong Mengxiang said after calculating the budget for this purchase of arms. In addition, I hope that Brother Liang can send some artillery instructors to help us train artillery. This purchase of guns is just the beginning of our cooperation. Governor Su and Governor Yi also think that the artillery on the Human fort is too old, and they are also considering purchasing some better foreign guns to replace the old cannons on the Human fort. This is a large order of $43,000, including $125,000 for the purchase of rifles, $27,360 for pistols, and $120,000 for 5 Loach boats. Guangdong has already purchased $315,360 worth of arms from him at one time, which can be said to be a huge investment. Each gun comes with 100 solid bullets. If the Hong army buys ammunition later, how about I give the Hong army a discount? Liang Zhao said very generously. Since the Hong army trusts me and buys ammunition from me, the personnel training is naturally a piece of cake. I will send 2 teams of artillery to Guangdong to teach you how to operate the guns, and it will not charge any fees. Hong Mengxiang was very happy to hear this. After a brief negotiation, he signed the order with Liang Zhao. After the order was signed, Hong Mengxiang paid for these orders with silver. $315,360 is equivalent to 200,884 taels of silver. Hong Mengxiang asked Liang Zhao with a shameless face whether he could eliminate the 884 taels of the decimal. Since this decimal was not too outrageous, Liang Zhao agreed. Except for the Loach-class patrol gunboat, which could not be delivered in full because there were only 2 ships in stock, Liang Zhao could deliver all the other arms in stock. After the arms were loaded, Hong Mengxiang, in a good mood, came to bid farewell to Liang Zhao and prepared to return to Guangzhou. Have you ever thought about buying a production line directly from me? Before leaving, Liang Zhao poured a glass of wine for Hong Mengxiang to see him off. Production line. Hong Mengxiang took the wine handed over by Liang Zhao with a puzzled expression on his face. It means directly moving my workshop that produces artillery at the Sacramento Arsenal to Guangdong, and making artillery and shells by ourselves. Liang Zhao smiled. Liang Zhao wanted to eliminate the smoothbore artillery production line of the Sacramento Arsenal. If Guangdong was willing to take over this production line, it would be great. As for the fact that selling the production line would destroy the job of the Sacramento Arsenal, Liang Zhao was not worried about this problem. First, he wanted to transfer the smoothbore artillery production line that was about to be outdated. Second, with the inefficient and backward management methods of the Qing dynasty, the artillery produced in the Qing dynasty in the future would not pose a threat to his products. More advanced weapons still have to be bought from him, and it costs money to maintain the production line. After transferring the production line, Liang Zhao can still make this money. Aren't you afraid of ruining your job at the arsenal? Hong Mengxiang was very surprised. The Sacramento Arsenal doesn't just make this kind of cannon. Liang Zhao smiled with his hands behind his back. I, Liang, have more than one job, and I'm not afraid of having one of them ruined. How much? Hong Mengxiang quickly became interested in Liang Zhao's transfer of the production line, but he also knew that this was a huge expense, and he had no say in whether it would be successful. The price is 500,000 taels of silver. Liang Zhao smiled. Brother Liang, you have a big appetite. This time I only spent 200,000 taels of silver to buy arms from you, and you sell me this production line for 500,000 taels of silver. Hong Mengxiang shook his head again and again. Too expensive, too expensive. I sell you arms, I sell eggs, I sell you production lines, I sell hens that can lay eggs. How can we generalize? Liang Zhao said 500,000 taels of silver was just his opening price, and it was negotiable. Even if it was finally negotiated to 300,000 taels of silver, Liang Zhao would be able to accept it. After drinking the wine in the cup, Hong Mingxian clasped his fists towards Liang Zhao and said, "This matter needs to be decided by the minister. I will report this to the minister after I return. Brother Liang, goodbye." After speaking, Hong Mingxian left San Francisco and returned to Guangzhou. After Hong Mingxian left, Liang Zhao asked his fifth uncle Liang Shaoqiang about the situation of the Guangdong Yang Battalion. "Fifth uncle, how is the training of the Guangdong Yang?" Now 1,500 Guangdong Yang have completed the training and formed the Guangdong Yang Battalion, Liang Shaoqiang said. After the fall of Jiangning, the Taiping army became more and more courageous, and even divided its troops to the north. The people in the capital are now in panic. Before the Xianjing incident in 1856, the combat effectiveness of the Taiping army was still on the rise. Even if the Hunan army fought against the Taiping army, it might not be able to get any advantage. Has the court approved the Guangdong Yang to fight in Guangdong? Liang Zhao continued to ask. Suppressing the Taiping army was the only good opportunity for Han officials to hold real power in the more than 200 years since the founding of the Qing dynasty. It is also the hope for the Liang family to turn things around. Liang Zhao does not want only the warlord bureaucrats of Zhang Guofan's Hunan army to hold real power after this incident. After all, so far, he has no intersection with the Hunan army and Zhang Guofan. Last year, General Pan petitioned the court to allow the Guangdong Yang to fight in Guangdong, and the emperor just said, "I know." He did not make a clear statement on this matter, Liang Shaoqiang said. But since the fall of Jiangning, the court has issued an order to allow the Guangdong Yang to train 2 more battalions and fight in Guangdong, and also approved 20,000 taels of silver for the Guangdong Yang. Are the Guangdong Yang ready to fight in Guangdong? Liang Zhao nodded. Last year, the court was hesitant about the Guangdong Yangs fighting in Guangdong because the situation was not yet out of control. No matter how fiercely the Taiping army fought in Jinshan, Yong'an, Guilin, Quanzhou, Changsha, Wuchang, Jiujiang, Huqiao, and Anqing, in the eyes of the Qing court, they were at best a group of bandits and were not to be feared. But the situation was different after the Taiping army captured Nanjing, established the capital and founded the country, refused to leave, and began to establish a stable base. As the former capital of the Ming dynasty, Nanjing's political influence was not comparable to the cities previously captured by the Taiping army. Moreover, the Jiangnan region occupied by the Taiping army was not a remote and poor place like Guangxi, but a fertile land, an important financial center of the Qing court, and had already threatened the foundation of the Qing dynasty's rule. The Taiping army obviously wanted to compete with the Qing court and replace it, which was unacceptable to the Qing rulers. The Qing court completely let go of the local militia and encouraged them to wipe out the Taiping army. As long as the Guangdong warriors can fight outside Guangdong, they will have a chance to emerge. Of course, Pan Shicheng and the Liang family who stayed in Xiangshan also have a chance to emerge. The Taiping army has 1 million soldiers, and their morale is high. They also have generals like the Pseudo Wing King who are good at fighting. However, the Guangdong soldiers only have more than 1,000 soldiers. To be fair, General Pan and I have little confidence, Liang Shaoqiang said truthfully. Before the Taiping army captured Jiangning, General Pan thought that 1 battalion of Guangdong soldiers could be used to try out the skills and fight in Guangdong. But after the Taiping army captured Jiangning, General Pan hoped that the other 2 battalions of Guangdong soldiers would be trained before fighting in Guangdong. I came to California this time to purchase weapons to arm the new battalion of Guangdong soldiers. It is better to fight in Guangdong sooner rather than later. When the local soldiers from other places have made a name for themselves in the battle to suppress the Taiping army, the weight of the Guangdong soldiers in the eyes of the court will not be so important, Liang Zhao said. When I went to Japan, I only had 2 regiments and more than 2,000 soldiers, but I still beat the Japanese army of 100,000 to pulp. The quality of soldiers is more important than the quantity. Liang Shaoqiang chewed on his nephew's words carefully, and it was indeed reasonable. Liang Zhao fought well when he went across the ocean to conquer Japan, but he was afraid to take action. As he said, Liang Zhao patted Liang Shaoqiang on the shoulder and encouraged him, "Uncle Wu, whether our Lion family can make a breakthrough depends on this time. We must give it a try. Even if the battle fails, we still have a chance. As long as I am here, the Liang family and the Guangdong warriors can afford to lose." "Your words make my blood boil," Liang Shaoqiang smiled. "After I go back, I will urge General Pan to send troops as soon as possible. But my dear nephew, in addition to purchasing 4,000 foreign guns this time, Our Guangdong warriors also want to train some artillery. You have to help me with this. Uncle Wu's business is my business, leave it to me. Liang Zhao patted his chest and said. Does my nephew have any suggestions for the Guangdong army to train artillery? Liang Xiaoqiang asked Liang Zhao for advice. He had been familiar with classics, history, and literature since he was a child, and had read some military books for fun in his spare time, but he had never led troops to fight. In terms of military affairs, this nephew who was already a general in the United States must be more knowledgeable than himself, and it would not hurt for him to listen to Liang Zhao's advice. The Guangdong army currently has only one battalion of 1,500 people. It is definitely not their turn to attack cities and strongholds. Besides, the Taiping army is currently in full swing, and the Qing dynasty is on the defensive, so there are few opportunities to attack cities, Liang Zhao said, stroking the hard stubble on his chin. I think the battle between the Guangdong Yuan and the Taiping army is mainly field battles and city defense battles. The Guangdong Yuan needs to train artillery, and can train field artillery equipped with 6-pound and 12-pound guns. The 6-pound and 12-pound guns are relatively light and can be pulled by mules and horses to march with the army. As for the organization, it can be imitated from my organization or the organization of the American Artillery Regiment, with 3 to 6 people serving one gun. Liang Xiaoqiang nodded with understanding, and kept Liang Zhao's suggestion in mind. However, he still had a concern: the artillery training takes too long, and the Guangdong Yuan is about to leave the country. I am afraid that it will be difficult to train them into an army in a short time and go to war with the army. I can recruit some artillery with actual combat experience for your Guangdong Yuan in California, let my officers command them, and join the Guangdong Yuan as mercenaries to go to war with the army. Liang Zhao gave a solution. It is obviously impossible for the artillery company that he has worked so hard to train to be a mercenary for the Guangdong Yuan battalion. God knows how Pan Shichen and Liang Xiaoqiang, 2 people without actual combat experience, will fight the war. He could support the Yuan, but he would not sacrifice his precious artillery. However, he could still hire a small group of retired artillerymen and sailors who had used naval guns in California for the Yuan. Chapter 350 Black Gloves. It has to be said that Pinkerton's work efficiency is very high. In just 1 week, Pinkerton concentrated all the blacks in California to San Francisco. This is also related to the fact that the main settlements in California are connected by railways. Pinkerton and his CIA agents can reach any settlement in California within 24 hours. Sir, how to deal with these blacks? Here, this is the list of these blacks, a total of 1,368 people. Pinkerton handed the list of blacks to Liang Zhao. Liang Zhao looked at the list. Among the 1,368 blacks, 715 escaped from Texas, more than half of the total number. There are also 150 blacks who refused to explain where they came to California. In addition to the place of origin, this rough list also includes the gender and age of the blacks. Liang Zhao roughly estimated that more than 90% of the blacks are strong men between the ages of 16 and 35. This is also expected. If the black slaves in the East want to reach California, they need to cross New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada on land. The current development level of this territorial region is very low, and the natural conditions are relatively poor. The physical fitness of the black slaves who can pass through these places to California must be beyond reproach. It is not to say that there are no female black slaves, old black slaves, and young black slaves who escaped, but these fugitives with weaker bodies generally died on the way to escape and failed to reach their destination smoothly. Are all the blacks in California here? After checking the list, Liang Zhao put down the list in his hand. I can't guarantee that the CIA has found all the blacks in California, but I can guarantee that more than 98% of the blacks in California have been concentrated in San Francisco. It is only a matter of time to find some individual fish that have slipped through the net, Pinkerton said truthfully. California is not big, nor is it small. Pinkerton can't guarantee that there are no blacks in California now. What's more, the problem of escaped slaves in the southern slave states is so serious now. Who knows if there are new blacks pouring into California? Very good. In the future, if the CIA and police officers from local police stations find blacks, they will be immediately sent to San Francisco for centralized management. Liang Zhao was quite satisfied with this result. A bounty order has been issued to all settlements in California. Anyone hiding black people will be fined $300 per person, $300 for informants, and $500 for those who report the case to the police. The CIA has done a great job on this mission. I will apply to the Treasury Department for a bonus. The assistance of the Loyalty Society is indispensable. Without the accurate intelligence they provide, we would not be able to complete the mission you assigned to me in such a short time, Pinkerton said. All the black people in California have been concentrated in San Francisco. The next question is how to deal with these black people. It is obviously inappropriate for Liang Zhao to deal with these black people himself. He is now a well-known figure and he certainly cannot do the dirty work himself. Liang Zhao asked Connie to go to the telegraph room to send a telegram to Stanford, asking Stanford to come to Tingtao Garden. After receiving the telegram, Stanford quickly rushed to Tingtao Garden to meet Liang Zhao. Stanford is Liang Zhao's black glove. Basically, the dirty work that Liang Zhao does not want to touch himself is given to Stanford. Of course, Stanford did a great job on the work he was assigned to, which is why Liang Zhao has kept Stanford until now. The work Liang Zhao assigned to Stanford was dirty, but it was definitely not tiring. Many people wanted to take on these jobs but could not. Sir, are you looking for me? Stanford was dressed in a suit and had a slicked back hair and a well-cut beard. After seeing Liang Zhao, Stanford took off his hat and bowed deeply to Liang Zhao. How much is an adult-strong black slave worth in US dollars? Liang Zhao motioned Stanford to sit down. Liang Zhao had promised Bell that he would return the black slaves in Texas to the 715 black fugitives who had been confirmed in Texas free of charge. As for the remaining 653 black slaves, Liang Zhao planned to entrust Stanford to deal with them, and use the money to pay the CIA's bonus and a bonus for subsequent whistleblowers. California does not owe black people anything, has no obligation to become a safe haven for black people, and has no obligation to spend California taxpayers' money to solve black problems. Very high. At present, a healthy black slave can be sold for about $1,300 in the slave market. Of course, the market and price may be different in different states, Stanford said like a treasure. Obviously, he is very familiar with the current market of black slaves in the American market. American black slaves have never been cheap. Around 1800, the price of a young and healthy male black slave was $400 to $500. Up to now, it has risen by about 3 times. However, this is not the peak of the price of black slaves. The peak of the price of black slaves occurred on the eve of the Civil War. A young and healthy male black slave had a price of an astonishing $1,800, but there was still no market. You have to know that during this period, an ordinary American worker's monthly salary was only a little over $10. If I ask you to secretly dispose of 653 black slaves, can you do it? Liang Zhao handed the list of black slaves to Stanford, who was sitting in front of him. Stanford is a smart man. He knows that Liang Zhao is looking for him just to do something shameful, and he knows that this is also the reason why he can settle down in California despite his many bad deeds. Stanford was very happy and did not bargain with Liang Zhao. After some thought, he said, "Okay, there is no market for black slaves in slave states at present, but if you want to do it without leaving any traces, you need to give more profits to the slave traders. But no matter what, we can at least make $700 to $800 from each black slave. Each black slave can guarantee a profit of $700 to $800, which can guarantee that the subsequent handling of the black escaped slaves does not need to use California's finances." Liang Zhao is satisfied with such profits. Very good, this matter will be your responsibility. You must do it cleanly without leaving any traces. Liang Zhao nodded and said. He was more relieved to let Stanford do these things. At the beginning of the year, the garment factory completed the order of 30,000 sets of military uniforms from France more than a month ahead of schedule. Liang was very surprised when he heard that the 30,000 sets of military uniforms had been sewn and could be delivered ahead of schedule. After all, these were 30,000 sets of military uniforms. And he had never seen any company that could sew 30,000 sets of military uniforms in half a year. Liang's first reaction was to suspect that the garment factory was cutting corners to rush the work. It was not until he personally went to the garment factory to inspect the factory that he realized that he was judging others by his own standards. The military uniforms were made of solid materials, using qualified fabrics and wool, and the stitching was also strict and orderly, with no signs of rushing. The quality of these uniforms was very good, completely exceeding Legoff's expectations. Even if the quality was a little lower, it would still pass the French military's acceptance standards. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.